So, ladies and gents, good morning to the Transport Forum, 16th of May 2019. We're looking at digital transformation to the smart city. We're proudly hosted by Huawei here in Woodmead, Johannesburg. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your time. It's great having you here, seeing all the faces again, a lot of new faces. You might have noticed, ladies and gents, obviously that the events, all of them are for free. The related content on the web is for free. So we need sponsors to make this possible. And we've got valued sponsors making this possible to us today. And you can see them on the screen. Obviously, our host today is Huawei. Tommy will just now tell you a little more about Huawei, our host. I would like to give recognition to our sponsors. Ladies and gents, we've got the Open Learning Group. They're a new sponsor to the Transport Forum and Gold sponsor. And we've got Rochelle here who's going to tell us a little bit more about the Open Learning Group. Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you, Harry. Morning, everybody. I'm Rochelle Bates. I'm Marketing Manager of Open Learning Group. Just wanted to give you a quick overview of what our company is about, since, as Harry stated, we are a new sponsor. So we're very excited to be a part of the Transport Forum as one of the sponsors, and thank you to Huawei today for being the hosts. But Open Learning Group, so we've been around for over 20 years. We're a private higher education institution. We specialize in logistics and supply chain management qualifications. So everything ranging from your learnerships at an NQF level 2 right through to a BBA level 7. We're also accredited training providers of the Institute of Certified Bookkeepers, which means that we facilitate finance and commerce programs as well, all accredited by the ICB. We're also affiliated with the University of the Free State Business School, where we offer a range of management qualifications suited at every level of management. So I would like to invite you, so during the break, if you're interested, just to get a little bit more information about how we could possibly help your organization with regards to your training needs. I think what sets us apart from most other institutions is that we're not only accredited, but we place a huge emphasis and focus on customer service as well, from a student perspective as well as a business perspective, where we have, service level agreements with our clients, and we just put in that extra effort to just maintain the relationship along the way, making sure that, everything is of high quality. We have a really, really great academic team that ensures that the quality content of our qualifications are relevant and industry practical relevant content. So if you are interested in learning more about Open Learning Group and how we can assist you, we do have a table at the back, and you're welcome to speak to any one of our consultants that are there or myself. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle. Is there somebody from Oricon? I want to say a few words. I didn't talk to Oricon this morning yet. Nobody. Usually they're hiding in the audience. Okay, ladies and gents, Oricon is for 3 years already a gold sponsor, consulting engineering group. We've got VIX Technologies, ticketing solutions, automatic fare collection. Chart told me that he will tell you more about the organization during his presentation. We've got C-Track Fleet Management. They're sitting there at the back. Maybe you guys can just stand up quickly there, C-Track guys. You can see how they look. Ladies and gents, making your assets visible. Fleet management solutions, tracking solutions. They've been a gold sponsor since the start of this forum, more than 12 years ago. We've got the Railways Africa magazine, focusing on rail infrastructure. I just realized I haven't got Freight and Trading Weekly on here. Sorry, Jody. If Jody can just stand up there at the back. Freight and Trading Weekly is Jody. There you go, owned by Now Media. They all about logistics, ladies and gents, so online and a weekly magazine. They actually been a sponsor and they back a sponsor again, been sponsor for many years. We've got the WITS Transnet Center of Systems Engineering, focusing obviously also on Transnet business, very much involved in design thinking and stuff like that for Transnet as well, but obviously other organizations as well. Gold sponsor for 4 years now. And we've got Kalula Work. They, the first year now, a gold sponsor. You can see on your desks and all over, there's more information about great packages they have available for business travel. And it's actually really worth your while to go and look what they got to offer for business travel, making it really worth your while. Ladies and gents, well, let's give all the sponsors a big hand. The presentations today, those of them that's been made public, will be available on the Transport Forum's website. There you see the web address. Now, obviously, this will be uploaded to the website. You will be able to download them complimentary. You'll have to log in. On the screen, you'll see there's a login screen. Should you not have an account yet, then you'll select Sign Up under the Users menu. You follow a little sign up process. It will send a confirmation email. You confirm your email address, and then you've got your own user profile that you can log in future. And once you've logged in, then you can go to the downloads feature, and the downloads feature should open up a little simple search engine like that. The search engine, you can either type in a person's name or a date or whatever, and it will bring up all that related information according to your search. So should you put in the Snyman, for example, it will call up all the presentations presented by Tommy Snyman over the past 12 years, for example. Or you can go to category and you can select today's date, and it will bring up all the presentations presented today that you can download. Very simple and straightforward. I just want to say, ladies and gents, we're porting the Transport Forum's website to a new service provider, and that will be done tomorrow. So all these presentations and pictures taken of this event will be uploaded to the web this evening. Hopefully the site is not down too much over the next few days. We had to take this step because we've got really big problems with our current service provider. So it's been transferred or migrated, and hopefully the downtime is not too much. So when you see online and you see it's working, take the gap and download presentations. Definitely from Sunday, Monday, the site should be stable again. But over the weekend, it will be up and down as we migrating the data to a new server. Okay, so without further ado then, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Tommy Snyman from Huawei. He's the ITS industry expert, Huawei Enterprise South Africa. He initiated this event, hosting of Huawei today. Tommy, we're very thankful for you doing this. You've actually been involved with the Transport Forum for many years, I think from the start of the forum many years ago. So he's an old-timer, but yeah, adding lots of value to our lives. Tommy, thank you very much for having us here today.
Good morning. Heartily welcome to Huawei Office Park. For us, it's a big pleasure to host this event this morning, today. And I also would like to say to the team behind the scenes, thank you very much, although they're not in here, who helped to put us together. Now, just for introduction, Huawei, who is Huawei? I think most of people just know Huawei as a cell phone provider. And I think it's a little bit more than just that. Huawei is a Chinese international company. We are in more than 170 countries, 180,000 people, of which more than 80,000 of them are just working on research. Now, it's divided in 4 business units. The first business unit is the carrier business unit. That is originally where Huawei started, and we provide more than 60% of all carrier equipment in the world. Now you can imagine there's a 40% lacking, maybe that's Americans. And as we always say, thank you to Trump. He made the big marketing effort for us to say about Huawei. So we always thankful to Donald Trump. The next business unit is then our consumer business, which is our cell phones and our dongles and all the small consumer business side. And then where I worked in is the enterprise business, and the enterprise business, I think you will see today more about the enterprise business when we're talking about the digital transformation and what we're doing in a digital transformation process, not only for transport, but also on the smart city side. So from our side, heartily welcome here. And also Harry asked me that I must just mention we have a lucky draw this afternoon. And if you don't believe me, we have a Huawei P-Smart cell phone. Now, one thing that fascinates me, I was thinking of changing my old Huawei phone with this one because it's also got a dual SIM. So it's very, very interesting, especially for us traveling to China. You put a China one in and a South Africa one in. And then we've got the Huawei MediaMate T3, also as a lucky draw. You have to be present and make sure that during the day your business card is put into the lucky bin. And so hopefully, let's see. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tommy. Ladies and gents, then our first presenter today will be Rose Moyo. She's a telecommunications specialist or professional with Huawei Enterprise, and she's going to do an introduction to the smart city for us. Thank you very much, Rose.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just, I'm a little bit high up than anybody else. Okay. It is my great privilege to be able to introduce to you our smart city solution and the concept which we're looking at how the smart cities can be built. It is basically where we are sitting today, where we are saying, in today's world, we are moving from being IT to ICT, and the ICT basically we are looking at the big transformation is the intelligence. It's no longer the pipeline, it's no longer the drop boxes, but basically the intelligence. I think there's been a paradigm shift within the general industries and basically every aspect of our life where we had regarded ICT as a support pillar to really becoming an ICT as an integrated platform within our daily livelihood. This is not exceptional within our cities, hence the smart cities. And when we look at that in an intelligent world, which is what is our philosophy in Huawei, we're looking at trying to bring intelligence to every home, individual's home, company, and basically the cities and the globe. What we're looking at is we need to have all things sensed. Here in the all things sensed, we need to be integrating the physical world into the IT world. Then once you sense something, it has to be connected, to be transported to somewhere where the intelligence, it has to be relevant. Because within the city, it's multifaceted, and everybody sitting within the city, the information has to be relevant to the business or to the decision-making which they need to make. And below in there, we have what are we calling our fundamental enabler, which is the ICT infrastructure becomes really the foundation of the ICT intelligent world. Because of what I've said, that you need to be connected, interlinked basically, you need to be looking at being intelligent, and whatever you are sensing really needs to be relevant. And when we look at the technologies underpinning those, you're looking at our broadband, which is not a secret, it has not been introduced yesterday, it has been talked about several times, but it's still evolving on the definition of what we are looking at because of the applications that we are looking at. We're now looking at our data centers, where the information is just really looking at to getting hosted, and maybe the applications as well. And what is actually being the biggest transformer within this industry is basically cloud computing, where it is now a world of sharing, a sharing platform. It's all about sharing. The silos needs to be broken for us to have an intelligent and smart city. Then we are looking at the IoT. I always joke with my colleagues that it is not a new technology per se, much as we would want to believe it is a new technology. I always give it as an analogous of a denim that has been existing, but is still existing. You know, IoT, telemetry has always been existing. So in terms of IoT, is now adding the intelligence within those really sensing that we have always had. Then we have now our artificial intelligence. Within the fundamentals, I think Tommy would actually go into some of the details with digital transformation. If we look at different, sorry, what happened here? No, I thought it right. If we look at some of the things that we're having is, what we're looking as is, as I said, it's no longer looking at ICT as a supporting pillar, but really as really a driver in terms of whatever we are doing within the city. But it has to be really business driven. And we used to say ICT is an overlay of the businesses, which I think there has been also a paradigm shift because it cannot be isolated. Hence, we're looking at this as a customer driven from the business side and maybe the technology driven as the two wheels that will be actually driving each other. They will be just as you can see, like a gear really moving and interlocked with each other for us to have a really enabled digital transformation. Having said that, how we have looked at our smart city or digital, especially smart cities, we have put it as an analogous of a human being, where you are now looking at your nervous system, from the brain interconnected to anything that you can sense. Your nose, you can, whatever types of sensors, you can look at it in terms of your eyes being your video surveillance. Today, CCTV is no longer relevant because usually it was an after effect. We want the applications that are actually coming from there. That's where the intelligence is actually coming in. So now in a digital city, it's not a new concept. Some of the concepts have been applied already, but there's still a lot of things that needs to be done for us to get to where we would want to be in terms of actually looking at the smart cities and the digital city. And having looked at it from that perspective, I think it will make sense as I go on and maybe elaborate on that. What are our the main goals when we're looking at the smart cities? We should not look at basically, as I said, it's business driven. We should look at it as looking at how do we revitalize the industry. Most and the most important, everything we do is for the people, with the people. So the beneficiation should be to the people. And good governance is what is actually driving most of the safe cities. So you'd find that while least we're having that, if you look at the center of the smart city, like I said, there will be the heart and maybe the brains. The brains of the smart city is what we call the intelligent operating center, where everything is going to be processed, but it has to be looking at really what are our goals, are we achieving, and having the intelligence having to be interpreted to whatever we are going to get, giving the industry what they want in terms of the industry monitoring and management of the big data. And also, if you look at it, the investment, really evaluation, management of the investment that will be coming in, convenience to the overall users, and the overall status monitoring, whether it's the transport, whether it's the safety and the security within the city, and the general city management. From our perspective, this is how the architecture in terms of what we're looking at in terms of the digital platform that will enable smart cities. We're looking at the sensing. The sensing, you're looking at anything that, whether it's industrial sensors, whether it's devices, whether it's basically your mobile devices that you're holding today. Then we're looking at another layer, which is the connectivity layer, which has been talked about when we look at even the penetration within any city, penetration ratio, digital divide. That's we're looking at the different technologies that can be employed within that. It's a diversity that we're looking at. Then we're looking at AI. There, when we look at the digital platform, the reason why we're looking at an approach where it's a platform, it's not one technology that would enable us to have smart city. So it's how we create those, more like a system within a system. How do we use those systems within a system, to be able to create maybe what we call a fertile soil to bring in the applications of what is relevant to the various applications within the city. And you'd find that in there we're looking at different aspects of it. And fundamentally where I have the private, basically the moment you mentioned the thing about the cloud, because of certain restriction and basically some of the issues that we might have, and being conservative, in most cases you'd find that there will be that aspect where we are looking at where would my data be? But basically it is a technology where you can actually have a cloud within your private cloud, the government cloud, where the information can be shared amongst the people. This is where you don't have to be the point of contact from your city power to your whatever rates and whatever as a person. But basically the data being integrated, which makes it relevant, and being shared securely across the platforms. And whilst that is the case, it has to interface. There's no way it will not interface with the outside world, because certain aspects like with safety and security within that needs to actually tap in from the outside world. So the public-private cloud would be also really looking at that. And that's basically what we're looking at. And having those fundamentals, we have to look at the public safety, smart city, or whatever applications that would actually give us anything that is smart within the city. On the other pillar, where we are coming from as Huawei, we're saying it is basically, I think in my language, we always say, if you have lice in your head, you know the lice? You'll never use one finger to crush it. You need at least two. So basically the same concept applies here. Within such a big elephant that has to be moving, and within even a body, not even a single part would ever claim that is most important than the other. It's an existence of the core system, a system within a system. We can look at different systems within the body, even within a body, human body. So that's part we are saying, Huawei plus the ecosystems is how we can bring ecosystems of different providers. That's how we can bring reality. But we would be focusing each one of us as enablers, or maybe each one of us as a contributor to actually building this digital transformation within the city to enable us having smart cities. How do we do that? In South Africa, I think if you look at it, my colleague has introduced Huawei as 4 business groups. In the enterprise department, what we have looked at is mainly to say we need to look at how we can look at a joint innovation center. The joint innovation centers would be more or less to say, while most of the technologies are existing, the concept of the smart city sometimes is not a plug and play. It's an evolving path, and it will not be built overnight. So basically, whatever we have would need to be plugged to whatever we are going to be building going forward. And the only way we can build is to try and test it. That's hence we have the joint innovation. We are lucky to say we are sitting in Johannesburg, where we have got one of the joint innovation centers that we are using. And I think going forward, for me to actually give you what exactly is a smart city, which is basically a discussion which we can engage when we have an open discussion, I would want to maybe go into, I believe is, we learn more when we actually see practical, or we share practical experiences when it comes to smart cities. Here, my next then would be basically to look at what are the cases that I've picked, a few cases where elements of the smart cities or the smart cities approach has been given. This is an Italian city where, in terms of fundamentally what it is, it's a small island city within basically Italy. What we're looking at is looking at improving the quality of the administration and improving competencies in the social community. And in this, it was more or less to say, what is it that we needed to do? They partnered with us in looking at basically what in most of the things that we are looking at in terms of the smart city, and the key enabler, which is not a technology enabler, is the vision. We have transformed from where ICT is basically a supporting pillar to be an integrated and a competitive pillar within where the competitiveness can be built. Then basically it's looking at the human competencies, because the human being is still sitting within that, the ecosystem. Then we're looking at how do we look at the other players, international players within the smart cities. What happened was within our team and their team, they created their vision, and how we're looking at aligning their vision with the technology that we enabled with. Basically, as you are seeing, it was more or less like a house, that we building the house within the smart city. And like a house, I would always give also that analogous to say, when you're building a smart city, there's a house that is not exactly a duplicate of another. Fundamentals are the same, which are the enabling technologies and the fundamental ICT technologies that are actually interlinking. And as you can see the connectivity, the gateways, which is the terminal layer, where we are saying, what is it that we want to know? It's basically what we want to know, what we want to sense. Then we're looking at the connectivity. There's a lot that we have done to actually within our cities to look at when we're looking at that. Then we're looking at the data layer, where we are saying, what are the different data platforms that we are looking at? Then we're looking at the common platforms that could be built to create basically the upper applications. The upper applications, whether you are going to apply it in the transport system, whether it is the part of the transport system, whether it's basically trying to manage the public that will be actually coming in, would be actually coming from those enablers. So our team and their team came up with that. Another one has been looking at it from closer to home, maybe it's the Arab region, I would say, yeah, or more or less. We looked at that. Basically, what they were looking at is National Digital Transformation Strategy as a field test. And this has been a 6 months period, 6 months period, where we're saying from 2018 to now, it has gone live. What is it that they have put in terms of application as being enabled by the ICT infrastructure is at the center of the e-government. We're looking at smart schools, we're looking at smart poles, we're looking at the Intelligent Operations Center. Why we are saying the Intelligence Operations Center becomes the heart and the core of any city is where you have the visibility, the dashboards, any information that is happening within the city. Just like a brain, our brain, anything that happens to your body, it's actually recorded in your brain, whether you like it or not. So basically, that's what we had there. Another example, that's basically what is it value that it brought. Business investment increased by 16%. If you look at their road maintenance cost, reduced by 20%, and the municipal cost reduced by 30%. I think it's something that we could all really love, especially on the road maintenance cost. Some of the features that we actually applied, like I said, IOC, Cloud Data Center, IoT, and digital big data platform. And the next one I would share with you is the most interesting one, which is basically where our headquarters is sitting. As a global company, that's where our headquarters is sitting. And just to give you preview information, in China, if you want to buy a car, you need to go for auction, especially in this region, because it's an economic zone. You go for an auction for a number plate before you go and buy your car, because there is not much space for you to buy a car. So it's not about how much you have, it's about how lucky you are to get that ticket, to get the number plate. So that's basically to try and control when it comes to that. Then you can imagine in terms of traffic flow, how much we're looking at. And I think you can say, I can say, humbly say, I think on average when we're looking at their population, the entire population of South Africa could be residing in one city in China. So basically, that's basically what we're saying here. So when we imagine the traffic flow and we have our own pains in Johannesburg or within South Africa, what is it that they used? I think one of the biggest fundamental technology that will see transformation in terms of the ICT, besides the 5G, which is basically the enabler, which is maybe the broadband platform that will be looking at the 5G applications, then you're looking at artificial intelligence. In this sense, we've said it has now been automated from where they are saying you have to wait and wait for the signal to be controlled remotely, for maybe for you to say in sequence to say 10 minutes, whether there is somebody coming or not. That's basically real-time optimization of traffic timing for it to enable the traffic flow, which is what I think everybody's dream. Just to, as I'm coming to the conclusion of my presentation, I'll just give you a map of where we have actually applied. The slide will be available for you to share. And what is our strategy for me to conclude? Within the strategic platform for us as Huawei is we have to build an ecosystem and where everybody has a room to play a part. In this ecosystem, we are focusing on a building platform strategy where we are saying if you are having a platform, it's not one technology. We are lucky to say if you look at our end-to-end solution, we are proud to say we have end-to-end ICT solution. We look at how we're looking at open standards and how we can integrate with existing and other players within the industry for us to build a better smart city. And the ecosystem existence is basically we're looking at how do we have other developers coming in and actually developing. To conclude, I would say digital transformation technologies from our perspective, we focus on three verticals, three basic things, which is the device, pipe, and cloud. So there is always room for somebody else to play. And when you look at that, the pipe we're looking at basically your IT infrastructure and the, the connectivity infrastructure. The devices we're looking at basically the unified devices when you look at your video conferencing or whatever you can talk about, and as well as your smartphones. And then we're looking at the cloud. That basically gives you a map of what we actually give. In a nutshell, we, in terms of building the smart cities, the endeavor is looking at it from the nervous system perspective, and all things sense, all things connected, and all things intelligent. And key success factors, as my concluding slide, it will be really leadership and strong leadership in terms of how everything, the leadership and the direction, execution teams, which everybody in this room can actually come and play, industry digital players, and solid investment when it comes to smart cities. Thank you very much. I'm told there are no questions. There are no discussion.
Thank you so much, Rose. Ladies and gents, exciting technology. It's above my thinking. I think it would be great if they can think of a solution that make my wife hear her phone rings when it's in her handbag. But seriously impressive. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to the panel discussion with Rose. I'm sure the people have lots of questions for you. Ladies and gents, our next presenter then, our gold sponsor, Mr. Chad Kruger. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Wix Technology, and he's going to talk about smart ticketing for smart cities. Thank you, Chad.
Good morning to everybody. Thank you. I think, Tommy, it's a fantastic facility that you have. It's very impressive. I'm glad to be party to the presentation today. So from my perspective, sitting down with Harry and sitting down with Tommy in terms of how we're going to prepare and slice and dice today's presentations, I'm going to chat about smart mobility for smart cities, more specifically focusing on the AFC component thereof. And just a brief background, I'm Chad Kruger, as Harry's introduced me, just in case you didn't understand, this is me. We're going to move on. So who's Wix? So from a perspective of where we're standing with Wix is the numbers talk for themselves. We've been around for a long time, and we've got a credible track record proven over time in terms of the AFC space and in transport, public transport specifically. And we've got 700 people, 770 people across the globe, with 77 roundabout there in South Africa. So effectively, we're really a global company. with offices in Cape Town and in Johannesburg. I think the most important part is that our shareholders are committed to South Africa. We've invested quite a lot of capital and resources into the South African region. We committed to South Africa. With all its circumstances, with all the smells, with all the stuff, we committed here for the long haul and we're staying. We're not a fly-in, fly-out organization at all. So when we're going to chat about smart cities, I'm just going to quickly read from this. A smart city is one that combines data, its resources, infrastructure, and its people to continuously focus on improving livability. It's an aggregation of power, creativity, but it's also a body of data and live analysis. So that's just setting the scene from our perspective. I think the scene's already been set quite well by Rose already and Tommy. So let's move on. And I promise I didn't sit down with Rose in any form or manner with regards to talking about an analogy of the human body. But since Rose already set the scene, I can just really say if we're looking at a circulatory system and the human body is the entire smart city, then the circulatory system is really the smart mobility in that sense. So we're moving parts around in the whole to make sure that it's vitally healthy. And so if we focus specifically on AFC, digitization has changed ticketing irreversibly and the transformation is not finished by a long way. Clearly the evolution will continue as more and more third parties come and play in different tokens, and it's important that everybody stays on track in providing, I guess, the commuter and the customer with a proper, simplistic journey. I really think that's what enables making sure that people cost effectively and efficiently get to their workspace and back. So, just to reiterate, AFC is only but an artery in the whole human body, transporting and making things move. I think just setting the scene for the importance that transport plays. If we have a look at the African continent, it is said to be the fastest growing in terms of population and urbanization throughout the world. So if you just have a look at it, 25% of people are expected to be on the African continent in 2050. We're currently sitting at 16%, so the explosion of people in our continent is going to be massive. We're looking that 50% of those people by 2030 will be in urbanized cities. We're only currently sitting at around about 36%. All these people need to get to work, they need to get to school, so the infrastructure and the transport of making this happen in terms of the economic and ensuring economical growth is essential. So you can understand the important part that digitization and transport will play in the future. I mean, just at the moment, as we stand at the moment, congestion and the planning and the road infrastructure, all that kind of stuff, that's really, really bad from our perspective. So we require some proper data. We need not just the data to plan, but we really need to think ahead in terms of dealing with this issue. Otherwise, it's going to be a real disaster for us getting to work and actually getting an economic platform to grow from. So let's just talk about a smart citizen. This guy's really connected, and I'm not talking about the political connection here. I'm talking about connections in terms of IT and the Internet of Things. I'm not going to dwell too long on this. I mean, we've already, previous rows, you've already spoken about this. But the smart citizen is really connected, and he has all the tools available to him. The smartphone is like really, and the technology that underlies that has really generated this guy to be very connected in terms of data. Our data is used. He has become a data center himself, using data and actually providing data for people to make intelligent decisions. So it's massive. The city will sense him, and he'll be sensing the city in terms of how he's going to properly plan his travel and his requirements. So I'm going to dwell on that too much. The three I's of smart cities, Rosie also touched on that. I mean, everything is going to be instrumented. It's interconnected, so systems need to talk to one another. They need to be automated. Artificial intelligence in terms of how they intelligently communicate with one another is essential in a city going forward, and that is all that information and data that is gathered is obviously essential to actually creating a smart city and the smart mobility within that. So one thing in all of this technology, there's always this fear that we leave the the commuter, the person, the human element out of that, because it's all driven by really state-of-the-art thinking by machines. But I think the important part that we need to take care of and note of here is the consumer and the commuter. We need to place him at the heart of whatever we're going to do. We need to provide him with a simplistic, easy, cost-effective, efficient way to commute and put him at the heart of this. If we do that, we'll be in a good space of actually providing a proper quality of life for our community in a smart city. So how would communities benefit from this? I mean, we've heard the old adage that once time is lost, it's lost forever. You can't buy time back. So, but if I can save time and I can provide a commuter with more time with his family, and he doesn't have to spend hours getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get to work and get back at 10 o'clock to provide a living, I guess that is what a smart city should be doing. We should strive towards the improvement of the quality and get people to spend more time at home. And given a natural offspin of that is that the productivity will also then increase. If we can also institute some serious reliability in terms of when our transport arrives, how it arrives, and the quality thereof, we're also in a good space. Important, everything's going to become real time, so you can really plan and think ahead now in terms of demanding where you want to travel. And safety in South Africa is clearly key. All the technology that surrounds the travel, the cameras, all that kind of stuff is really important, providing safety. And if I can do the demand and all of that at a fair price to achieve all of this, clearly I will be in a very smart position to improve the quality of life for all our commuters and the people in South Africa and the people we actually look after. It will also be desperate if I neglect, given that I'm an accountant by training, not to talk about the increased GDP that it will affect, that there will be sustainable economic growth, and that prosperity goes hand in hand with that. And that's really what a smart city and the smart mobility should be driving in that sense as an outcome. I'm not going to dwell too long on stakeholder engagement. We know who all of them are. The point here being is that we all need to understand that stakeholders all need to work together. If we're pulling in the wrong direction, or we're not all working together or pulling at the wrong times, we are not going to facilitate an appropriate smart city, neither are we going to actually really achieve smart mobility within a smart city. It's really, really important that we all work together. So I also just want to touch on mass service provider, because clearly in the AFC space, mass has become the newest term that people are talking about. So let me jump into that then as well. So we're being a mass provider and service provider, it is really important in terms of creating integrated transport networks and creating a platform so that we can actually provide simplistic and easy ways, convenient ways to actually get to work in terms of our transportation. So if we have a look at what drives from global inputs, so when we look at VIX, what we said is we need to create a platform whereby we can actually service our commuter, the operator, the public service, the municipalities, all of them. How do we actually bring them all together in one single platform and generate a solution that is fit for purpose and that will be sustainable in terms of economic growth going forward, making sure that I can get an end-to-end journey actually done and in the most easiest and convenience of ways. So if we have a look at digitization, I think it's really driven everybody, as Rose also previously alluded to, is that you'll be looking at single platforms where everybody can coexist and can play together in a way that actually drives that. So I guess the whole idea here is the concept of once written and many times used for various parties across all, whether it be my technology or some device or a token, that all that data can actually speak to one another in many forms and only be captured once for the benefit of all. If we talk about cloud as a service, clearly that is really important. That's setting a new standard. It enables business models to be scalable. We're also looking at payments, contactless EMV, with regards to the bank driving that sector quite hard. We've seen Apple Pay, Google Pay. We've also seen the introduction of a whole lot of third-party wearables and technology that's driven that space in terms of the payments and e-wallets. So the smartphone, as I said previously, has enabled the smart citizen to actually have an ability to self-manage. So this guy now can actually travel and he can actually plan, given with all that he has, and that is really important in terms of putting some platform together. Data has become really rich. It's become really valuable. Data on its own doesn't really matter too much. How you interpret that data, how you disseminate that data, how you provide that data back for proper use is really important, and that needs to be very clear in your solution and in terms of your product. And together with that, we're talking about security. Security is obviously really important given all the acts and the privacy, and we've seen that this has caused quite a lot of problems in the IT sector at this point in time, people trying to rectify that as quickly as possible. So your solution should really be driving the security issue. In tokens, we've seen the digitization of that. We've moved away from the cash to quite innovative tokens and wearables. It's been digitized, it's changing forever, and third parties are driving that innovation quite substantially. Accounts, well, they've all been digitized. So all of a sudden you've got artificial intelligence that can drive and become predictive, proactive in terms of how people behave just by the sheer amount of data that you can actually put into your accounting. Fair models is innovative in its nature, but very complex. Complex in the sense that you can't just, in the old days, change a fair model. It would take quite some work and effort to actually get it done. Given the new technologies and what we want to do, we're going to see loads of innovation and lots of experimentation in terms of what will actually work best for a commuter and for the city itself. Really important. We're going to see loads of innovation there, as I've said. End-to-end journey analysis. The smartphone has enabled the smart citizen to be in a position now to plan ahead and understand exactly how he wants to travel across all kinds of modes, tokens, and payments. So, and then integration, obviously, that is really important when we talk about the sense that we need to integrate across all kinds of devices, tokens, modes, and platforms and service providers. We all need to be one body, I guess, human body. I'll go to that analogy. And it's really important that we all play together and integrate in an appropriate manner. And then obviously financial management has become real time given the digitization. So if you can deal with the transit inputs, the global trends that people are pursuing, you can come up with a product. So from a VIX perspective, we very much in the early days followed a project basis. So when we nailed down a mandate, we all went and feasted, partied for a few days, and then actually get down to actually implementing the transaction. And after you've implemented your product or your solution, you've become so, how shall we say, bespoke that you can't really sell forward. So the whole idea is to productize the core, provide a platform, a single platform to where everybody can coexist and play in terms of providing a better customer journey and obviously creating a better smart city. So in terms of our thought process, we had a global investment in terms of investing into the core product. It's cloud-based. It will be secure in terms of its design. It will function on an open architectural basis with open via APIs. It will be modular. The rich data that will be coming forth will be analyzed, interrogated, and provide appropriate input in terms of what actually makes sense in terms of dashboards, information, and how you can actually run your business. And it's obviously mobile enabled and very much focused on the smart citizen in providing him really with a fit for purpose solution in terms of what will enable him to get to work best and cheapest. So if I can just quickly touch on MAS as an ecosystem, it's really about the end-to-end journey, and it is planned, it's managed, and it's paid for from one single account. That's really the importance of that across home, various transports, public, private, different modes of transport, to and fro from work. One single account. That is really the ultimate where we all want to move towards, and that's what we want to deploy. I guess the important part of all of this is it has to have a central clearing and settlement and a portion across all parties. The open architecture we've already spoke about. But at the end of the day, when the customer and the commuter is getting from A to B in the most efficient way and he's happy, and the rand and the cents are not falling into the right pockets, then clearly things will go high wire real quick, as we all know. So just moving on to fair payment. So we've come a long way. For a long time, the evolution in terms of how ticketing worked, stayed kind of stagnant between cash and magnetic stripes and smart cards, but the evolution has now just really rocketed in terms of where we are now in terms of mobiles, wearables, and identity, the closed-loop cards, open payments, and account-based ticketing, all facilitated through proper secure APIs. The whole idea here is that we do the evolution and grow with the digitization, but it all needs to happen on the basis that fare collection cost will reduce as the technology improves. And so the simplicity and the impetus for the customer and the commuter should increase substantially for our smart citizen. So just quickly to give you an idea of where we are, the green elements of this diagram is really what we at VIX are really good at, the fare management, the payments, the clearing and the settling thereof. In terms of mobile applications and the fronting thereof, there obviously we're going to deal with a lot of third parties as they are the experts in those areas. We don't see in any way that we are application, how shall we say, guru from this perspective. So we'll partner with the people that are best of breed and make sure that we can all coexist in that environment. A simple platform for everybody to play. So if I can just maybe say, the product that we talk about then is VIX Pulse, and it's a complete end-to-end solution. It's providing one single platform which is agnostic, and I guess this is really the important part. It's agnostic in terms of device, in terms of the modal transport that we select, in terms of how we want to deal with ticketing, accounting, whether we use a card, closed loop, open or not, whether it's account-based ticketing. It is agnostic. So it will facilitate and enable any party. So if we've got the commuter using any wearable or kind of token, putting onto a validator or a device, front office device, and whether it's my unit from a VIX or whether it is one of our competitors in the market, we can all play together in terms of this platform. And obviously it's all secured and via the APIs. And like I've said, it's an end-to-end solution catering for all to play. And it needs to be agnostic for a smart city and smart mobility to actually coexist and work well. I'm not going to dwell on the value propositions too long as I'm running out of time here. Mobility, you need to be able in the position to have your entire journey planned with a whole lot of options. It needs to be real time, on demand, on time, at a fair price. That's really what it's all about. I want to plan it in the most cost-efficient manner. And by the way, from a value-added perspective, I want it personalized because the smart citizen is not your normal kind of person. As we know, the ego plays a terrific part in all of this. So it's really important to have personalization in any form that we possibly can. Having all the data and all the information at hand, that is really a breeze from that perspective to actually achieve. So just in summary, what is the key to smart mobility? Single platform that is agnostic to the mode of travel, token, device, front office device, payment methods, banks or e-wallets. So it's all about, and I get back to this, putting the commuter at the heart of the journey. That's really the important part. And he's in control in terms of choice, and we're ensuring trust by the security in terms of the design thereof. That's really the importance thereof. I'm not going to dwell too long on this. All I really want to illustrate with this slide is it is complex. The integrated network, transport network, is a great vision, and we all aspire to getting it done properly. But it is difficult, and it requires a lot of input, a lot of cohesion between all participants. And I think the important part is to make sure that the money drops into the right pockets at the right time. The clearing and the apportionment of the money going into the system gets done timeously and correctly first time. Just to give you an idea, with regards to Beijing being one of the biggest subways in the world, we're looking at 21 lines, 319 stations, 50 million transactions per day. That happens without the blink of an eye in the background of the platform, and it happens accurately. And that's what we should be striving for. That happens in London as well, I know, but that is what we want to strive for. It's all been enabled. So how do we leverage smart mobility for a smart city? I guess the important part is it's the data. It's the interconnectedness of all things. It's what do you do with the data and the knowledge that we've gained through the process. And how do you disseminate that? Well, clearly, 3 pillars there. It needs to drive effectiveness, efficiency, the information needs to be real time, and it needs to drive a smart city. So we're really looking at, from effectiveness and efficiency, that we can have improved planning in terms of where roads should be, where stations should be, how subsidies should be allocated, how the travel should work, providing varied and myriad choice options in terms of payment, and that there's differing price options for actually getting you from A to B. Then from a real-time information, clearly journey planning becomes like really easy, and it will be improved significantly. Traffic management, we've dealt with that very slightly in Rose's presentation already. Personalized mobility and services, transport modes, different options, how it works, how it interacts, how it connects with one another. And then obviously from a smart city perspective, using all that data can relieve congestion. We can reduce pollution, and there will be significant cost savings in terms of utilizing the data appropriately and in the right perspective. And then obviously this will all create a smarter, greener city life, introduce quality of life, improves the economic growth, and I guess that's really what we're all after, is simplicity, growth and prosperity. I haven't heard about anybody showing away prosperity, so I guess if we can have that as an output, that will be brilliant. So the future of smart mobility will depend on putting commuters in control, with intelligent transport networks driving the future digital technologies and the consumer adoption thereof in smart cities. Yep, so having run out of a little bit of time here, thank you to everybody, and then thank you, Harry, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Chart. Just looking at it, I'm already feeling in control. We're looking forward to engage with you. Thank you very much for a well-researched and very informative presentation. Ladies and gents, our next person then is Mr. Victor Radebe, and he's the Executive Director for Mobility Center of Africa, and he's going to talk about the future of mobility in a smart city and the 2040 scenario. That's about vision. Thank you very much, Victor. Yes. I'll get it working. Tommy, maybe you must come and help. I was using another man's PC here, so I'm a little bit lost.
Good morning. Maybe my presentation was too low tech. There's a joke that goes around that what's the difference between slavery and technology? Is that in slavery, every slave wakes up every morning dreaming of escaping. Whereas in technology, every people spend their days saying, tell me more, what's more? Is there more to this than that? We live in the world of, some call it the fourth industrial revolution, where everything is connected and technology has become probably more for our master than our servant. My name is Victor Khatebe. I started this entity, which is a non-profit, which seeks basically to advocate for the future of mobility. I come from the transport space. I've worked extensively. We introduced the concept of Aerotropolis in South Africa. We've worked with the city of Ekurhuleni, KZN government. But currently, among other things, I'm running this entity, but also I serve in other forums like the 5G forum of ICASA and also in the drone industry. Why was MCA established? Among other things, we wanted to look at the need to proactively manage these disruptive forces because they're everywhere. And also to maintain a globally competitiveness in the auto industry. We manufacture about 600,000 cars in the country, and we export about 60% of that, with BMWs up to 80%. And we've always been told that this country is not ready for autonomous vehicles. It's something that we should not be worrying about. It's something that we've got better things to worry about. But if we look at where we're exporting these vehicles, we need to be able to stay globally competitive and be able to export those vehicles, because BMW and all these companies, they are all moving into the connected and autonomous vehicle space. And the next 10 years there's going to be a lot of changes. I'm going to talk more about that. But then there's also the need to localize our technology. Again, there's a big push with the 2035 Automotive Master Plan to look at this matter of technology. There is a school of thought that South Africa, we should not reinvent the wheel. We must just wait for the West, and now increasingly China and Europe to develop the technologies, and then we buy it. We always say then we should just shut down all the research institutions and not develop anything in South Africa. There's the issue of the jobs bloodbath, and some jobs, the future of work is going to change, things are going to change, and what we look at it today as a job is going to probably be so fragmented that you'll wake up one day, choose the kind of tasks that you want to do, and you'll be rated according to that, and you'll get work in accordance with what you specialized in. We've seen this, for instance, in cities like Bangalore in India, whereby they can do tax returns for a guy that they'll never meet in their lives who's sitting in the US. So that is a type of future of work that's going to do, which is being changed. I'm just going to talk about these few topics, looking at some of the global trends within the area of mobility. Look at some scenarios. We've worked on some scenarios with, not ourselves, but with the help of a number of stakeholders, the likes of professional services firms, thought leaders in South Africa, and some of the experts, some of them are in this room, who have helped us look at these scenarios for 2040. We'll look at the trends and the game changers that we need to watch, and ultimately we'll look at what are the implications for this for South Africa. On global trends, there's a book written by Richard Spelling, which talks about the three revolutions, which are taking place within the shared mobility space, and the next one within the green economy. I've got one of our colleagues here who's been dedicated much of his career on green economy, which is Mr. Ethan Palmer here, who researches on it. I learned something new from him the other day. I used to talk about V2V connectivity, but he taught me about V2G connectivity, which is something which blew my mind, and I'm still learning as well. And then it's about connected and autonomous vehicles. Most of the vehicles are so far connected today, and in the future, when you buy a vehicle in the 2030s, you're probably not going to be looking for extras like a sunroof and the 18-inch mags, but you'll probably be looking for things like emergency braking and adaptive cruise control. Those are the kind of extras they're going to do. What we're seeing happening in the future is that brands are going to disappear because brands will not matter. As much as today when you order an Uber, you don't care whether it's a Corolla or a Nissan, you just want the service. So the service is going to be so commoditized that brands won't matter. With autonomous vehicles, these countries are busy testing. And by the way, just about all OEMs, within the automotive space, we've got about 14 automotive groups who are controlling about 53 brands, and they're all testing. VW, BMW, and everybody else. The journey that was started by Google in 2009, they're all in that space. I've highlighted these countries because these are the countries we're exporting cars to, okay? And the green ones are the ones that we're exporting the cars to, and they're heavily testing. I mean, in Australia, for instance, there's probably over 30 autonomous vehicle testing and piloting that is taking place in that space. Just going to, maybe just to put this in context, here's a McKinsey video, if I can just share it. Is it connected? Is the speaker not connected? Okay. Can we just skip it? If it's fine, I can just talk through it.
Still right?
Yeah, it's fine. I think the sound is just music, but it's looking at the journey to 2030. This video is probably about 3 years old, but it's looking at where the journey is going to take us, where the automotive industry is going, and what is happening within that space. Oops, sorry. What did I do? Okay. If you allow me, can I just keep it? We can share the link on it. When it comes to the scenarios for the future of mobility, we looked at 2040. Again, we'll qualify this. These are the scenarios as we see them, but these are scenarios, we've tested this. We have a document that we've prepared. We've developed with the assistance of the industry, academia, and government. So we might be wrong in terms of these scenarios, but we just want to get to understand how we develop them, okay, the methodology. We used this methodology. We looked at the purpose for the scenario which we articulated and what are the core issues. We look at the defining drivers of change because sometimes technology is shouting. There's too much hype around 5G, IoT, and everything else. But what is driving that change? That is what we're going to get into now. We used the DEFT and the iceberg analysis to look at what is driving this whole change. And then we ranked all these drivers and came up with 2 drivers that we believe are going to drive mobility in future mobility in South Africa. And then we projected the scenarios. Okay. If we go back to the core issues, we still talk in MCA about the wicked four, and whatever solutions that are there in the world as far as South Africa, we would like them to address these core 4 issues. And the first one is crashes. Okay, we don't call them accidents anymore because when you're driving at 180 kilometers an hour, it can be, if you get involved in an accident, it can be culpable homicide. We believe that that should be attempted murder. If you look at the judgment that convicted Jub Marihani, he was convicted of murder, not culpable homicide. And this alone has got a societal cost of about 142 billion. That was 2016. That was about 3% of our GDP. The next one is congestion. According to PwC, we spend about 9 days, equivalent of 9 days per year in traffic, and that equates to about 70 billion rand lost to the economy through productivity. Congestion economists, they refer it as a sign of market failure. And that is the problem. All because majority of vehicles are single occupant, and there's so many empty seats that are out there. The next one is affordability. Poor people are paying up to 40% of their income. They use modes of transport that have no subsidy. Okay, this is a big issue because this is a social time bomb. Okay, when you see people burning trains, this is a problem that happens because most of the people have no options but to use taxis, and that's about 70% of the people out there. It's a matter that I've been discussing with Mr. Paul Browning here. It's a matter that is close to his heart as well. Emissions, yes, this is a very important element, and I'm glad that there's so much energy within this topic. Excuse the pun. You've got about over 4 departments, national departments, all talking about going green, and it is an important factor, and it's a matter that we've got to get into. If we are producing vehicles and we're not beginning to look into this, it's problematic. I've seen the master plan, automotive master plan 2035. It's not saying much about EVs, which is problematic, because by 2035 we'll be hitting the bottom of the Earth's curve. And if we think we're going to start doing something by then, technology will not have worked, because all our manufacturing of vehicles here is based on export market. If we can't export to countries that want only EVs, then plants like BMW will shut down, because we export 80% of their cars. So there'll be no reason for them to be here, because the market in South Africa is too small. The rest of the continent is a dumping ground for second-hand vehicles. We call these wicked problems, but they are changing, they're mutating, and they're evolving along with disruptive forces. We used to deal, for instance, with drunken driving, driving under the influence, but now we're talking about distracted driving, which is overtaking drunken driving as one of the major causes of crashes. We used to talk over the phone, which would increase the risk, according to a study, I think it's done by University of Michigan. If you talk over the phone, the risk of a crash increased by a factor of 4 to 1. But once you start texting, which is what we are doing these days, the risk moves from 23 to 1. So which is why most of the crashes are coming from this space. But what are the real drivers of change, the real disruptors that we want to talk about? We applied what we call the systems thinking approach, critical thinking. We say, look, let's take a step back and look at what is really driving the change, because technology is too loud, but what is behind this? And then we said, we looked at various events. I mean, if you look at this event, this could be an event, but if you live in the Western Cape, this could be a pattern. If you look at this was a strike in 2016 of the taxi industry. You know, it was an event, or it could be a pattern because of the problems that are affecting that industry. Petrol rise, I think we're having another petrol rise. Is a pattern, is something happening there? And crashes, what is happening? But what happens within an iceberg approach, some of the things that we see on top, we see them as events, and then we sometimes dismiss them as event, whereas there are patterns that are driving whatever that is happening up there. But even further down, you look at structures. The reason, for instance, poor people have to pay up to 40% of their income is because of the structural nature of the spatial framework of the old order. Okay, in the past 25 years, instead of us trying to bridge that with cities of Joburg coming with the corridors of freedom, no, Soweto grew in the opposite direction to economic opportunities. And whilst economic opportunities used to be located in central Johannesburg, they've moved north. So not only did people move to the wrong direction, even business moved in the other side. So if someone lives in the other side of Protea Glen, has to now go to Fourways, he has to spend almost half their income on transportation. And that is something that is a wicked problem that we've got to deal with. What are the drivers of change? We identified 6. There's quite a number of them that are there. One of them is disintermediation. I mean, Uber, that is exactly what they're doing. Disintermediation, e-commerce is being driven by this driver. The sharing economy, some call it the gig economy. This is the economy that is driving the sharing, which is good. Virtualization, I mean, this issue of digital twin, whereby you can basically take a physical object and basically digitize it and be able to do far more with it. This is what is happening in the digital economy. Climate change. I heard the Americans are saying climate change, the melting of the iceberg in the Antarctica is providing a good opportunity for new places to live in, to colonize. Anyway. Automation. Whatever that can be automated will be automated. Particularly at some of the jobs that are repetitive, some of the smaller jobs, everything is going to be automated. And I can't wait for driving to be automated, because we are, as humans, we are the biggest contributor. 90% of the accidents is because crashes, not accidents. It's because of human behavior. Urbanization, that is a big one. Okay, we're feeling it in South Africa, particularly in Gauteng. So we ranked all these drivers, and we said, okay, which ones are most relevant to South Africa? We picked these two. And we said, these are the drivers in the period between now and the next 20 years that are going to drive change, that are going to drive a need. And as we move in the digitization, we've got to be able to understand these drivers. Some of them are good, others are not so good. We said, okay, what will enable these drivers? What is the friction? What are the turners of these drivers of change? And obviously, we looked at some of them. Some of them have been presented by Chart and Rose, the likes of big data analytics. We believe, for instance, if you can be able to do the data, we're talking to RTMC right now to look at data analytics as a means to use for predictive analytics as far as accidents are concerned, and use it also in accident recreation, instead of measuring skid marks. IoT, we're living in a very digitally connected environment, and 5G is going to take that into another stage. I mean, the 4 V's of big data, the big one is velocity and the volumes. I mean, what 5G is going to do is going to take IoT to another level. Cloud computing, Rose spoke about it, and the whole issue around e-commerce. But then you've got frictions, and you've got turners. Okay, the big one is legislation. Okay, legislation is, in South Africa, is probably 20 years behind. Even in the US, it's still some years behind. Affordability, vested monopoly interest. You got in South Africa, we're a country of monopolies, whether in the banking industry, construction industry, and everywhere else, and whatever that is happening there, the monopolies are wanting to dictate the pace of change in terms of how change happens. Okay, in the banking industry, there's serious disruptions that are taking place right now. You've got 3 new banks who are not opening branches. We call some of these the coalition of the disrupted. The no startup culture, labor resistance. Okay, labor is now resisting, for instance, renewables. Internet access is still a problem. Innovation policy, what are the possible scenarios, as we've predicted, again, with the assistance of a number of thought leaders? We looked at the sharing economy. On the far side, you've got full sharing. On the side, you've got zero sharing. And then we then graphed urbanization. Okay, urbanization is it's nowhere near zero. And then we say, okay, what is scenario 1? Scenario 1 is utopia. Full sharing and less urbanization, that's utopia. It's not happening. It's not going to happen. Less sharing and less urbanization, business as usual, probably not plausible. That scenario is not plausible. Where we are here. We are a nation gridlocked, okay? And in fact, Rose, we're moving to a point whereby at some point we'll have to, I'd love to have started now this auctioning of number plates, so that we can, there are cars that should not be on the road, and but that's another debate. It's just that in South Africa we don't have much choices. The scenario 4, we think this is where the revolution is going to take place. Okay, but where are we at this point in time? If you look at the developing world, that's where they are in terms of urbanization. They're highly urbanized, and they are fast moving towards the right-hand side as far as sharing is concerned. This is where we are in South Africa. I think we're about 60% urbanized, but sharing is still very, very low, which is why everybody's still using their cars, and there's not much happening in there. And we believe that that dot was going to, as it moves to the right, we're going to have a revolution. But that dot on the urbanization is also going to rise. Gauteng alone, every census, every 5 years, we're receiving 1 million people. Half of those from the rest of the continent and half of those from some of the provinces. Okay, these are the scenarios. We can talk about that. But then there are trends to watch. Okay, question is there anything that we are overlooking in terms of these scenarios? Okay, something that is lacking out there in the horizon. What are the weak signals that are lacking out there? And are they passing fads, or are they worth considering? If you look at this graph, for instance, for any technology that comes into the market developed by Mollitz and Schultz, you'll see that the early adoption, because when people, even when smartphones came, for instance, they probably had a flat graph, and probably people didn't take too much notice of them until the trend started to hit the bottom of the S-curve, and that is what is happening with most of the technologies. And but with South Africa, particularly when it comes to connected and autonomous vehicle, we don't want to find ourselves at the bottom of the S-curve and not having done any research around it. Otherwise, we'll continue becoming just a buyer of technology from the West, East, and Europe. We've identified these game changers that will change everything, blockchain. I would love to see a situation whereby we can disintermediate the banks, okay, with peer-to-peer platforms that can come in. Because at the end of the day, let's face it, with the recession that we had, all the 4 banks were smiling all the way to the bank. They don't have to smile all the way to the bank, the other bank, and with a combined profit of over 40 billion. Okay. Banks will make their money, whether you're putting the money, you're taking it out, or whether you're just asking about your money, they'll still make their money. Okay. So blockchain promises. It's still very, very early days with blockchain, but blockchain, with its distributed ledger and with smart contracts, it promises to revolutionize mobility. 5G, I mean, Huawei is very, very much involved in 5G. In fact, I sit in the R&D work group with one of your colleagues, Tommy, and it's quite interesting. You guys are making waves everywhere. That is why the Americans love you guys so much. But what 5G is going to do, picture a situation whereby you're driving at 30 meters per second. Okay, that's 120 kilometers an hour. Okay, if you're driving at 120 kilometers an hour, currently 4G is useless because you're going to be buffering. If you want to do V2V connectivity, you're going to be buffering. Okay, but what 5G is going to do is going to be able to complete a communication from your vehicle to a cat eye that is on the road in 20 milliseconds, which means that from the time that you move from one lamppost to the next lamppost, you could have communicated 20 messages with 5G. If this is what you guys told me, if that's what you guys are promising us. So it's going to revolutionize the automotive industry. Before we even come to the connected autonomous vehicle, even just at this point in time, this is what is going to happen. And we believe that that it's a technology that we've got to harness as much as possible, but for the good, like, for instance, preventing accidents, crashes. Artificial intelligence. This is a big issue right now with autonomous vehicles. There's various technologies. I mean, you'll see, for instance, the 3 leading companies, Uber, Google, and the maverick Elon Musk. Okay, the big issue right now is still artificial intelligence. But by 2030, we will find out artificial intelligence will get into the cars. Okay. Because it's going to be doing things like facial recognition. It's going to be taking decisions. It's going to be learning about the conditions of the road. And one car, as it learns, it takes that information into the cloud, and every other car in the planet will know about that, even if it's not in South Africa. So the kind of information that's going to go out there is going to be revolutionary, which is what artificial intelligence will do. Sometimes of it's scary, because the area that we've got to deal with here is issue of ethics, because these cars are going to be making decisions on the basis, because they are reading us. They are learning from us, and they are learning from us with all our prejudices. They're going to make those decisions in terms of how they drive. My passion is the drone industry, not so much about deliveries, But people look at drones and autonomous vehicles and some of them as something to do something with them or transport something with them. But if you look at these purely from as data collection devices, even cars at the moment, because they're connected, if you think about them as data collection devices, they can be able to tell you about the road conditions without you having to go and inspect the road. Because at this point in time, you see these construction vehicles inspecting the road. These vehicles, right now, they can tell you that. I mean, what SEP does, for instance, I can't remember in one city, they have a situation whereby they've put devices on vehicles, and that information goes into the SAP system, and on the other side, it generates a works order that there's a pothole that needs to be repaired. And all of those things, because it's a connected device. So for us, a drone is not just about connecting people or transporting people, which is going to happen probably in the 2040s, but it's about the collection of data. What are the implications for South Africa? You guys have seen this slide talking about asset heavy and asset light. Okay. Yes, you've got companies on this side, for instance, companies like General Motors and all in this industry who are basically asset heavy, whereas Uber, which is on the extreme right-hand side, has chosen not to get into being asset heavy. Now, when you get into the ecosystem, the value is probably not going to be on what you can touch, the physical assets, but the value is probably going to be on the platform. I'm going to talk about that, and which the two presenters have spoken about, which is the mobility as a service, which we call it the platform of platforms. As I know sometimes when we talk about ecosystem, sometimes we're actually talking about the platform. Okay. The problem that we have at the moment is that all the innovators, all the new companies that are getting into this space, they're all developing platforms. Okay. And some of these platforms, they don't talk to each other, and some of them, they hate each other. I mean, Uber hates Google, and Google, and then both of them, they hate Elon Musk. So you're having a problem whereby who's going to develop an ecosystem, which it comes back to the authorities. The authorities need to look into the area where they can develop the platform of platforms. I mean, when we spoke, for instance, with Sunrail has a physical platform which is 22 kilometers of road. Okay. It's a physical platform, but once you take that platform, physical platform, okay, and digitize it and create a platform out of it, the kind of opportunities that they can have, you know, and the data that can be collected, if you take that and you layer 5G onto it, you know, the opportunities. I mean, Sunrail does not have to rely on fuel levies and e-toll and tolls, which they can't collect in Gauteng, but they can just sell the data and not worry about everything else. Okay. All other things being equal, of course. Some of the trends that are going to move into the future, obviously, I've spoken about artificial intelligence, but the trend in South Africa that we've got to watch is the imminent Uberization of the minibus taxi industry. This is Egypt. Uber launched it in Egypt, and they were very quick here in South Africa to say, no, we're not going to do that here, because they know the repercussions. Okay. Now, if you think the meters taxi industry disruption was anything to go by, it will be a Sunday picnic compared to the disruption that's going to happen. And it's going to disrupt just about everything. It's going to disrupt everybody and everything. Okay. This is an industry that we've got to look into, not so much about moving people, but about data collection and moving things. Yeah, we're still passionate about driverless vehicles. Last month we had in the FIA conference, Navia, which we assisted to bring the vehicle here. We learned the hard way that there's so many regulations that we got to go through just to bring the vehicle here. We had to get NRCS to give them more information to be able to get the vehicle here. Even when it was here, we had to be able to get an exemption from the minister. We didn't want to ask for permission. We said we had to get an exemption from the minister from the National Road Traffic Act, because that one is very clear. It's based on the Geneva Convention that says a human shall always be in control of their vehicle or their animal. So it tells you how far back this convention goes. But yeah. Lastly, this is my last slide. This is we call it our open letter to the next Minister of Transport, and we believe that We so wish that they retain Blade, because we've at least convinced him to get into that vehicle in Sun City, because he was not convinced before. We need to level the subsidy playing field. Okay, we have a situation in South Africa where we are perpetuating the status quo. We found the status quo in 1994, which was so skewed, and we are perpetuating it. Okay, the poor people are continuing paying so much with zero subsidy. We've got to level the playing field. In fact, there is a move right now to say we want to have a moratorium on all subsidies until such time that those 15 million commuters can also enjoy subsidy. You have, anyway, let me not get carried away on that one. We need to also integrate, and digitally we can be able to do that, but we will probably may need to increase internet access. I've seen in some of the BRT buses they do that, but you need to increase internet access so that we can integrate empty seats with ridership demand. There's so many empty seats. Some of them are in trains. The BRT also has some empty seats. The BRT was meant to be this solution that will solve our problem, but people are still voting in with their feet. They're staying with their minibuses because of, for whatever reason. But we need to have a solution where we can get into that. We need to get into R&D for homegrown solutions. Okay. Yes, there are solutions that we're better off just buying them off the shelf from the international telcos. It's fine. But we need to also do research, because some of the things that we've got to do, some of the solutions that we need a South African solution. If you look at the minibus taxi industry, there is no solution out there globally that can solve the minibus industry. I mean, the Colombian experience of BRT is it is not working. So we need to get into a serious R&D, and we call upon these telcos, Huawei and everybody else, to look at how do we develop a South African solution. One example, in the drones industry, you have a company that's based in Silicon Valley. It came into Rwanda, Zipline, that developed a distribution system network very brilliantly, which was an African solution. Now that company is going back to the US and is now going to be doing much more medical deliveries in there. I mean, the kind of work that they do and the system that they work on, it's phenomenal. So we need to get into R&D, and R&D is problematic for us in South Africa, and the money has to get into the right places. Lastly, we've got to rewrite the rule book on the future of mobility, and we've got to preempt what is happening. The nice thing is that in South Africa, we are actually lagging behind, so we can learn from the Americans, we can learn from the Europe, we can learn from the Chinese, but we've got to prepare our rule book today, and not work on a rule book that is based on the Geneva Convention of 1940s. Okay, just thought I should leave you with this on the autonomous vehicles. Okay, unfortunately you won't hear the visual. The car is being parked, okay, and yeah, this lady is basically saying this is witchcraft. Anyway, thank you very much, people.
Thank you so much, Victor. Surely you've got my support in rewriting the mobility book. Great technology. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to, you can just stand up and stretch legs a little bit. Let's give you 2 minutes to just stretch legs. Let's continue. Ladies and gents, it's only one presentation, then we're going to have lunch. Tommy is just chasing them back there. Ladies and gents, right, let's continue. The rest can join in as we go along. Our next presenter is Mr. Mike Krono. He's the civil engineer and transport planner, Mike Krono Consulting. Thank you very much, Mike. You've also been part of this forum for quite a number of years. Thank you for supporting us. He's going to talk about challenges faced by modern smart cities. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Harry. Thanks for the opportunity. I want to share with you where are we standing from a city perspective with these challenges that we touched on earlier. And the earlier presenters focused a lot on technology that's available. I want to take us to where are the issues within the modern city today and what can we do about it, applying these technologies. I want to touch on, in the first instance, where are we coming from? What is behind everything? What is driving us at this point in time? Smart cities from a city perspective, and then also just touch on mobility as a service, MaaS, as was touched on earlier in quite a bit of detail. Application of technology, how can we apply it on specific fields of issues in the modern city, and then come to some conclusions. Where are we coming from? I think we often forget that one of the biggest drivers, if not the biggest driver, is to move towards sustainable transport. Going with that is to end up with a sustainable planet. We, as a transport sector, we're the second largest greenhouse gas emitter, and it doesn't look like if we're going to do something much about that in the near future. If we look at United Nations and the World Bank and some international institutions, they came up a few years ago. I think the latest update of that was in 2015 with the EASY principles or EASY framework towards sustainable transport, where the E is standing for enabling environment. It's the government that sits behind everything, or should sit behind everything. The A for avoiding unnecessary travel, and going with that, of course, is better land use planning. And we in South Africa isn't really a good example of how to do that. Shift, S for shift to more environmentally friendly modes, And then the last one is to improve efficiencies and safety and so on, which I think we're doing quite well on. Just a bit of more detail on that, and you can certainly, when you access the presentation, can look at this. Smart cities from a transport perspective, and we touched on what's available. There are a number of definitions for smart cities. The one that I have here is from Ecolane in a document called The Future of Mobility. It's a lot in line with the work that Victor and his group is working on. At the end of the day, it seems to me that it's the application of information and communications technology, ICT, connected devices and the Internet of Things, application of smart technology by making use of applications as individuals, as citizens. And they say that Toronto and Dubai are good examples of the application of those. There are many others these days. If you just look at what our friends, the Australians, are doing, there's a lot that can be followed there, and they're no longer just experimenting. Of course, the same is true for Europe, the East, Americas, and so on. The goal of a smart city, to my mind, is to enhance the quality of life of its citizens, so we shouldn't forget that. The Internet of Things, of course, is giving us the tools to interact. Then mobility as a service, as some time has been spent on earlier. From my perspective, I see that it's providing us with a tool to move away from individual-owned vehicles. I think that is one of the biggest outcomes of mobility as a service. And if you talk to the Americans, they've been in that business for a long time, a lot of them at least. It's an on-demand model or a service. It's involving, like pointed out earlier already, public transport, ride-sharing, taxis in different forms, scooters, that's becoming very popular. In a number of countries, it's really getting off the ground, bikes, e-bikes, and so on. The smart city, how do we apply the technologies? Now, this is now the sort of bit different from the earlier presentations. This is the practical side of things. I think one of the biggest issues at the moment is data collection. There's a lot of data, one can even say big data available. It is not really ordered or available to everybody. It's not verified. What we should end up is with open data that is reliable, and that's available from a number of sources. If you just think of what's available through making use of cell phone data or GPSs and so on, there's a lot that can be done on that field. And that data should be available to the authorities, to the operators, to the man in the street. And then to apply this data that is reliable from cell phone devices, one can actually come up with a real-time current public transport record. That's one of the most expensive exercises that's been done in the country, and it's supposed to be done in terms of legislation every 5 years. It's not being done because it's so damn expensive. But you can actually sit with real-time CPTRs. And to make it easier, you can actually do it for certain nodes or precincts on its own, which is much less of an exercise. I think we should move towards a situation where each and every public transport vehicle that has got an operating license, approved operating license should have a GPS on board that provides the authorities with data, and the operator and the owner of the vehicle. And I think if you listen to, later in the day, Justin Kutsia will present their experience and what they found. The fact that you have that data available changes the way you operate and make you much more financially viable as a service. Transport modeling, as we know traditionally, the ME2 modeling and so on, I think we will see much less of that in future if we apply the type of, or make use of data that's already available in hot format. Next important thing, of course, is integrated ticketing. We've been talking about that for quite a long time. We're almost there, but we're not there yet. And that together with making use of simple smartphone applications where you can then decide as an individual, I want to go to a certain place, these are the options, this is what it's going to cost me, this is the time it's going to take, and that data should be available to everybody, every user of transport modes. That will also then create an environment in which you can support intermodalism, which we're battling with at the moment. Let's move on. Intelligent transport systems in normal municipal business, transport operations, traffic management. The tools are there to make a huge difference. We must just make use of it. If you look at congestion management, for example, one element that I personally believe we can do a lot on is to sort out the bottlenecks, which is mostly at major intersections. I'm pretty sure we can do a lot in getting the public transport vehicles through those intersections, give them priority. And we're talking about that, but we're not coming up with a solution, and it can't be all that difficult. If we allow the BRT buses to go through an intersection, can't the minibuses go through at the same time? Just something to think about. Bike sharing has got a lot of possibilities around it. At the University of Pretoria, we've just had a demonstration project with e-bikes, or including e-bikes. We've, I think, learned a lot from that, and we will hopefully be able to go take that further in future. But it's not only certain universities, there are a lot of opportunities around that in general. Going with that, of course, is NMT, the last mile around Gautrain stations and others, Prasa stations as well. The trick is to provide facilities where you can leave if you have your own bike, you can leave your bike and collect it in a safe environment afterwards again. I touched on the bottlenecks, critical intersections that can be the traffic flow can be assisted, and then there even contra-flow of public transport vehicles. In Tshwane, Pretoria, there's been one operating for many years, Voortrekker Road, Steve Biku now, and that's the only one. And I think there definitely in cities like Pretoria, Johannesburg, and others, opportunities of rolling out more of those contraflow lines, especially as long as we sit with one-way traffic in the morning and the other way back in afternoons. We can also apply technology And I think Johannesburg is a front runner on that with the application where you can report potholes and it's immediately coordinated with GPS system linked to it. Traffic light issues, drainage, congestion, also accidents, or as Victor say, crashes. These things, you can very easily with a system get to a point where you can see where are the hotspots and then start doing something about it. Using CCTV cameras, facial recognition, technology that can pick up traffic violations can make a huge difference. If you ask me, are we moving towards smarter cities in the South African environment? On the one hand, definitely, there's so many opportunities that we can pick up on making use of the old and the new, marrying the two, because we've, as I've said in the past, we've got to fill the potholes as well, get the traffic lights running, and not only have them work, but to have them synchronized so that you don't have to stop every time you go through them. Simple things like that can easily be dealt with technology available. But we should also keep in mind that the easy principles or framework towards sustainable transport must be also guiding us in whatever we do. And lastly, I think there's a huge opportunity or even a requirement that the city officials and the politicians should be properly trained in this field, because it's a new field and it's easy to shy away from. But the benefits and opportunities are huge if we apply it correctly. Harry, I think that's the story. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike. Ladies and gents, I think a lot of things was mentioned in this session this morning, and I think we can think about commuters being subsidized. I think that's a game changer, and it's an exciting one. The money will get where it should, but now the commuter will be empowered to actually make use of public transport, and that's what we all want. So throughput in our public transport system, I think, is extremely important. Technology, integration of technology, infrastructure being made available. I think it's exciting times we're living in, and thank you very much for everybody presenting this morning. We're looking forward to the panel discussion later on. Now it's time to have lunch, proudly sponsored by Huawei. So let's see each other again here at 1 o'clock. Thank you very much. We started the business directory for the Transport Forum, and it's quite popular. I think there's already about 50 companies listed in that business directory. And you can visit the Transport Forum's website, that one, and you can click on business directory. You'll see on the page, I haven't got a picture of it now with me, but you'll see business directory. You click on that, you'll see there's a lot of categories you can advertise in or get a listing in. Let's not call it advertising. And the price for that is 450 rands per annum. So that's really not money. Now, at the back of your feedback form, you'll see there's an area where you can indicate whether you're interested in taking up this opportunity to get a listing in the business forum, business directory. So if you tick that, then obviously we will contact you and we will explain to you more about what it is, and we'll send you the necessary information so that we can do the listing for you. But it's only 450 rands a year. It's all helping us to host these events and pay for the catering, all this type of stuff. So consider that. Thank you very much. Right, we've got 3 presentations coming up. Exciting afternoon. Unfortunately, Tsepo can't make it, but he sent a very capable Nico to come and talk to us. So we have a presenter on behalf of Gautrain Management Agency. Our first presenter this afternoon is Mr. Tommy Snyman. He is the ITS industry expert. And ladies and gents, he is Biwabi, but I can tell you he's got huge industry background, vast industry background. Sorry, Director, are we online? Are we online? Thank you. Just want to make sure. So Tommy is going to do a presentation. He's the ITS industry expert to Huawei Enterprise South Africa, and he's going to talk to us about smart transportation. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you, Harry. I always love to do it after lunch, and especially if everybody done my presentation for me during the morning. Makes it easier, and especially when you have a challenge with Harry for time. Because when you put up at 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and you're still halfway, then there's a problem. Now, last time when we were at UJ, we talked about the 4th Industrial Revolution, and we looked at the digital transformation process, and I want to start my presentation to carry on from where I ended last time. Now, if you look at digital transformation, and it's not only in transport, that is in any sector, 42% of CEOs say that the digital first or digital to the core is very, very important. And 61% of the CEOs says that plan to increase IT investments in 2019. So we see that digital transformation is a process, it's a journey. It's not something that came overnight and everybody tried to subscribe to it or think about it and don't know what's happening. So when we look at the 4th Industrial Revolution and we look at the components of the 4th Industrial Revolution, then going that journey was already explained this morning in a couple of slides. My colleague, Chart, Mike, a couple of presentations. So I want to go a little bit deeper into some of the technology and to explain that why we're talking about smart transport. Because a smart transport is one component of 13 vectors within the smart city. We are a transport forum, so it's important to say that what are we doing about smart transport? And how does it fit into the smart city side? Now, if you look at the internal and external environment changes that we pose today, then we see that the external driving forces, there's a digital economy, there's a national policy, there's needs, there's front users, there's competition that's happening, and there's a golden thread that we can take through transport of 3 core things that we try to optimize with digital transformation. First one is safety. Now, safety is all about this needs from the user. The next one is optimization or efficiencies. And the third one is about the customer experience. Chart explained this morning very well on how do we get a commuter what he wants. How do we go that roadmap further? So we take out three things. That's all external driving forces that we look at. Now, if you look at the internal driving forces, the CEOs, all your people that is running the company, CTOs, CIOs, all the IOs, we're looking at business values. We are looking at operational excellence. We're looking at innovative upgrade. How do we upgrade? And that is one of the key things that is different from the first three industrial revolutions. The first three was all about technology, new technology, but the fourth industrial revolution and the digital transformation is about connectivity. It's about how do we make sure that we get to that point and make sure that we're using that information. That is what the digital organization is striving for. If you look at the business requirements, then the digital transformation makes the ROI for digital technologies compared to non-digital technologies 6.7 times. If you look at the economy, $25 billion or trillion. Enterprises that have initiated digital transformation, 64%. And then CEOs that have adopted digital transformation strategy, 67%. So we see that digital transformation is alive, it's happening, and it's not going to wait for everybody to get onto the bandwagon. So what is digital transformation? I'm not going to read the whole big thing. I think we had a lot of definitions this morning about smart city, but it's about new technology to achieve business transformation, innovation, and growth. And when you look at the reconstruction of business processes, one of the key things that we left out in a lot of businesses is standard operating procedures, processes. How do we manage that processes linked to technology? The reconstruction of the user experience. More and more people is getting the experience they want to have a service. Now, if I look at what Jack van der Merwe the other day said to us at the Gautrain workshop, in Gauteng, each commuter used 3.7 times different type of modes of transport. How do we make that journey for that person a better journey? Through technology, maybe. Reconstruct products and services, and then reconstruct the business model. I think all businesses have to relook at their business models. When you look at the smart transport, the development phases, first of all, it's silo systems. We are aware that a lot of silo systems is running, and I want to use the example. Yesterday I counted, every time I'm counting, I'm getting an extra one. We've got 10 different operators, public transport operators in Gauteng. We've got Ekurhuleni's got 3 operators, different operators, each their own system. Swanee's got 2 operators. Ria Vaya's got 2 operators. Gautrain's got an operator. Praza's got an operator. Public or Patco, taxis. So we're sitting with a lot of information, silo information that we're not using. When you get to the next level, connecting transport nodes, partially sharing applications of data. That is digitalization, the process of digitalization. Then we get to integration, unified data sharing platform, the establishment of an integrated management process. And then the last, smart. What is smart? Applying leading ICT technologies, the LTE networks or the GSM, the IoT, cloud, big data, and artificial intelligence. The 6th one that normally comes in there is GIS, which I think GIS is already before these 5 areas, and but plays a major role. So currently we're sitting with the infrastructure. Most of the business is sitting with servers, security, narrowband, relays, analog, storage, and as Harry was saying, the security in the hobby is so good, maybe the firewall block, maybe the communication outside as well. So yeah, but when you look at innovation, the future is about bring your own device. It's about cloud computing, big data. It's about the 5G network. It's about artificial intelligence. But how efficient to find digital experts? I just want to concentrate on the right-hand side of the slide, mastering new technologies. we're moving away from the old regime of taking years to get something new into the market. Currently, explosive development of new technologies take about 1 year. But to mastering a new skill take about 3 years. So do we have sufficient skills to managing the digital transformation? Do we have the skills to assist companies to go to digital transformation? And that is something we have to answer ourselves. So when we look at innovative ICT, fueling the digital transformation for the smart transport, then we're looking at travel services, mobile access, multimodal transportation, end-to-end, virtualization, green transportation, smart production, and most of the things that's been mentioned this morning. That is all things that we are driving and which we would like to get out of digital transformation. It's about a big data platform, cloud computing, and cloud computing we can look at the private clouds, public clouds, the IoT devices. Mike mentioned about IoT, how important role it plays in municipalities, and then mobility. So it's very important of integrating this information. Normally, we try to use technology and to drive the business. But there's also a service-driven requirement from the top. And where the two meet each other, that is a digital transformation. The sharing of data, the efficient collaboration and cooperation between different companies and within companies to make sure that data has been shared. I just had a discussion now with a very good friend of mine. He's asking me, how many data do Harvey have? I don't think we have data of our customers, but we can provide a platform to get that data. So it's important, what are you doing with that data? And I think that is what Justin is going to answer us this afternoon as well. He's sitting with this pot of data, and maybe we need to help him. When you look at a transport management center, and there's a lot of abbreviations, TOCC and IOC, and everybody is giving their own name. We see that there's a lot of information on transport. It's not only about ITS. It's not only about public transport. What about the rail side? What about the aviation side? What about intersections? What about way bridges? And there's a lot of information that every group of departments, businesses is sitting with them myself. How do we share that information? And the only way we can do it is by establishing an overall architecture that is required to make that work. When we look at the architecture itself, then you're sitting with the application layer on the top, which can be operation monitoring, the dashboard, event management, auxiliary decision making, and that's different applications that can be developed by third parties. That could be applications that you require in your day-to-day business, but then you're looking at a data visualization platform, which is GIS, virtualization, your chart management, and then your data analysis platform, which is your algorithm library, your BI tool, and your machine learning, etc. Then you're looking at your data warehouse. So you're sitting with a platform of different layers. And when you look at the data warehouse, then it's your GIS database, it's your index library, that's your transport data warehouse, and we can carry on and we can carry on. Then your data integration platform, which becomes the key in moving forward for digital transformation. How do we take the data on the top and applications and make it work? And that is through the cloud computing, which I missed out on the fourth business unit, is the cloud computing. We've got our new division, cloud computing, which we've got our public cloud, and we also provide for private cloud. So data integration platform, that is where we take the enterprise service bus, where we integrate different databases and information into a platform. The data sources can be from any IoT device or vertical applications. In this instance, way bridges, ICT infrastructure, provincial government that can provide us with a lot of information that they're sitting with. And I want to refer here to one province where they've got information about law enforcement, incident management, what's happening on highways. You're sitting with SANRAL with a lot of information. You're sitting with South Africa Police Services who got access to a lot of information that can be used in the transport sector. You're sitting with NDOT. NDOT is sitting with an extensive amount, eNatus, RTIF, all that different databases standalone. But what are we doing with it in a silo environment? We're sitting with municipalities. Each municipality wants to protect the data. How do we share that data with each other? And in National Prosecuting Authority, they are sitting with extensive amount of data as well, which can be used to do management and to assist to provide a safe environment. Now this is a very small, I don't think the people at the back, that's why we provided screens on the sites for people to look at. And I don't want to go into detail, but most important for us is that data information must be visible, comprehensive, audible, easy to dispatch, and must be efficient. What do we do with this data? I just want to touch, this must be one overall architecture. If we want to proceed to the digital transformation to get to smart transportation, then it must be one overall architecture. And that is the big picture. Then we look at two assurance systems. Now the two assurance systems is in the TOC, which is a traffic management and control, and traffic emergency responses. Then we look at the three core capabilities, and the three core capabilities is the orange component there, which is your data hub, your artificial intelligence analysis, and then your intelligent detection. And then 4 support platforms, which is the platforms there on the blue area. And then 5 is your application scenarios, which is the one on the second horizontal line, which is infrastructure, consisting of your road, your bridges, your tunnel, and you're sitting with comprehensive law enforcement, public transportation, integrated transportation, and traffic governance. Now the question comes to mind when I read bridge. If we look at maybe if this information was available, this data information was available, and use it for bridge management, maybe the M2 was not supposed to be closed if they use it effectively. There's a lot of information available. So proactive prevention through terminal cloud conditions. We can see that we taking this platform, we use the devices on the bottom, and we can be any devices, and that information gets aggregated through the enterprise service bus into the different platforms of digital transformation. Now, what is the result? I had a question during lunchtime, but what do we get and what do we do with this information? Now, unfortunately, I don't see any Chinese in this room, so I can't translate it, so I will not translate this. So this is the index that we developed, and this is the index that we use in China, where we can measure different type of transport activities. And that is one of the capabilities that we can use and we can do, that we take data from various sources of information and we develop it into a dashboard or the index dashboard, so that that can be displayed in a transport management center or on an IOC, where management can have access to information. If we want to do index incident management, that is maybe one of it that we can display. We've done this in China, in Shenzhen, and this information is available. If you look at the dashboard itself, we can measure anything and we can display anything that is available. If data is available, we can transform it into the next level. The last slide is about the index formulation. When you look at the stakeholder scene on the right-hand side, then we're talking about DOT's, Department of Transport, who's sitting with an extensive amount of information and kept by themselves. You're sitting with SANRAL, who's got an extensive amount of information. South Africa Police Services, toll concessions, sitting with information, and then municipalities. when you put it through a process of road optimization, law enforcement, predictions, safety, you can get an index that gives you the traffic, give you an index of speed, fines, accidents, and incidents. As Rose was saying, bring digital to every person, home and organization for a fully connected, intelligent world. That is Huawei's goal at the end of the day. I think we're very close to it. If we don't use the enterprise platforms or GSM network, we've got devices, so we're close that everybody will have a Huawei or piece of Huawei in their hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tommy. Ladies and gents, obviously the focus is very much on what's happening in the Gauteng province as well, being the business mecca of South Africa. It's got a huge impact in our lives. We know that there's two meccas in this country, and that's obviously City of Cape Town and Gauteng province. Both of them are working hard to establish good transport authorities. So we appreciate what they're doing, and we're learning a lot from what they are telling us. And hence, our next presenter then is Mr. Nico. Sorry, I can't get your surname now, but he will introduce himself to us. He is from the Gautrain Management Agency, and he's going to talk about digitization and the future smart city. Thank you very much.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you very much for having us in this event. We are happy to share what we understand about digitization and the future of smart cities, and what our contribution is as the Gautrain Management Agency, and also as part of the Department of Roads and Transport in Gautrain. All right. As you can see, my agenda is very short, but that doesn't mean that my presentation is short. I only have 100 slides. I'm just kidding. So I'm just going to do an introduction, a quick introduction, a quick overview of our context as the Gauteng province, the future of public transport, the way we see it, and the way we understand it, and also take you through just a high-level overview of the project that I'm running, which I'm the project manager of, which is the IFM project. It's a project by the Department of Roads and Transport, and it has been entrusted to the Gautrain Management Agency to run with. And then I'm not sure about the questions and answer session. Is it at the end or? Okay. All right. All right. So the teacher in me said that I need to start by defining these two terms, because these are the terms that I need to be discussing. So the first one is basically smart city. How we understand smart cities is that a city has multiple verticals, and some of the verticals are energy management, environment, public transport, utilities, and so on. There's many verticals of a city. So a smart city is basically an integration of digital solutions or ICT solutions that cover various verticals of a city. That's our understanding of a smart city. So it's these solutions coming together to make a city function. And then what do we mean, what do we understand by digitization? Digitization in the transport or in the public transport context or in a smart city context is the implementation of solutions or products that leverage the ongoing development in ICT to enable innovation in traditional smart city functions. And I've given an example there that today, one of a city function is the ability to transport people from one place to another, and there's cash that is, most of the time there's cash that is exchanged when that travel is taking place. However, by implementing a cashless public transport system, you are basically taking advantage of the ICT solutions that are available to ensure that that process can actually take place efficiently. So this poses two very important questions. The first one is, how does public transport contribute to a smart city? Second one is, what does digitization mean in the public transport space? Before I get to the rest of the presentation, basically is going to answer those questions. But before I get to that, I want to take you through our context as the Gauteng province. And the key things that I want to focus on, the key blocks that I want to focus on, is the people one and the infrastructure one. In terms of the people one, as you can see, Gauteng is home to over 13 million people, and this is increasing by 2% year on year, and that's actually a lot of people. And in terms of the infrastructure, we have over 5,000 kilometers of road network, and we keep on increasing that. And if you look at what this means, the implications of these two blocks, what it means is that there's a lot of pressure, there's increased pressure on the infrastructure that we currently have. And secondly, it means that there's limited mobility. So it's difficult for people to move. The more people you're going to have in the province, the more it's going to be difficult for people to move. And what are the possible solutions to these issues? The first one is add more. What I mean by that is that you can add more roads, you can add more vehicles, you can add more lanes on existing roads and so on. But is that enough? The challenge is you can only do so much. You only have so much land, and you can only do so much. The second option is basically to optimize the existing operations, which is the route that is most sensible, that makes sense, given the constraints that you have in terms of land and budget as well. So another option is basically to combine the two in an optimal way. So the route that the Department of Roads and Transport has taken is basically to optimize the existing operations in addition to the road infrastructure improvements that are currently taking place. So some of the initiatives that the department has done is to establish the Provincial Transport Authority. Our CEO, Jack van der Merwe, has actually announced this. And he's running with that, and he's currently the interim CEO, or the interim head of that authority. And what that authority is going to do in this context is basically to oversee the implementation of an integrated public transport system. And this will be done through ensuring that there's rules and regulations, business rules, and other things that will facilitate the integration of public transport. And in addition to that, there will be a technology element of it, which is the integrated fare management system, which is the project that I'm running, and I'll take you through that. So what the Department of Roads and Transport is doing to address some of the challenges that I've highlighted is basically summarized in this slide here, in its vision, basically, which is to develop a multimodal, interoperable transport system in the province. And to basically, and the mission is basically to maximize the accessibility and convenience of public transport while also offering value for money to our people. So what has been done so far is that the department has put together together with other stakeholders, has put together a transport master plan. You can actually get a copy of this online. It's freely available. So if you are a service provider or a technology provider sitting in this room, I would urge you to familiarize yourself with this document because it actually lays out all the goals that the province has in terms of public transport. So you see things like allowing interoperability between public transport entities. You see things like allowing ticket interoperability between the different transport modes. And one of the things that that we are doing is compliance into compliance with the EMV standards. The Gautrain has actually implemented that. We are busy testing it as it is, and we should be launching it by the end of this year. So all the other, and I'm aware that other transport operators such as your Rea Vias and Ariens are actually have actually complied with this as well. In terms of the launch, I'm not sure when they've launched them, but I'm aware that they've actually complied with this. And then this is the first step of enabling interoperability. So for those who are not aware what EMV is with EMV, with your bank card, you should be able to access the public transport systems. So at the moment with the Gautrain and Arieng and Rea Vaya, you should be able with your once it's launched, you should be able with your card to access any of these modes. You can hop onto a Arieng in Pretoria using your bank card, hop onto a Gautrain system using your bank card, and also when you get to Johannesburg, you can go onto the BRT system there using your bank card. So the key thing here is that we have this document, which is the ITMP 25. And I urge you guys to actually go and have a look at it and see what the document is saying in terms of what needs to be done. Okay. Now, we cannot talk about the future of public transport or smart cities without talking about the traveler of the future. So what does the traveler of the future look like? The traveler of the future is a person who sees a vehicle as a commodity, meaning there's no need to actually own a vehicle. They want to be able to get from point A to point B, irrespective of what mode of transport they are using, as long as that mode of transport is safe, it's reliable, and it's actually affordable. They have increased access to information because they have access to information on their cell phones or through any other media. But then, because of that, they are then demanding that when they're using a service, there should be enough information on that service. Meaning, if there's any changes, if there's any delays, if there's any price increases, or whatever changes that take place in that service, they want to be able to have that information at their fingertips. So you should be able to, as public transport operators, we should be able to enable increased access to information to our customers or our passengers. They have high demand for convenience. They have increased demand for variety. As I mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter how many modes of transport they have to get into. They just need to make sure that those modes of transport must be accessible, they must be easy to access, they must be affordable, and they must also be safe. Time and cost saving. They are very time conscious and also cost conscious as well. We need to ensure that it's affordable, and there's high adoption of technology, which means the transport operations, the transport operators of the future need to ensure that they adopt high technology. We need to make sure that we adopt technology so that we can meet the needs of the future, of the traveler of the future. So what this means for the transporter of the future is that the transport systems must be integrated, it must be multimodal, and it must be technology-driven. And also, most importantly, it must be data-driven, because data is actually going to form, it's going to be the one that drives how the transport systems are actually put together and how the services are actually packaged for the travelers of the future. So it's very important for us to ensure that, especially the technology companies that are here, to ensure that the technologies that we actually make available out there should enable public transport operators to make use of these technologies to provide services to their customers. So what this means is that if you look at the current transport service, you find that a person is used to using one mode of transport. For instance, if I'm staying in Soweto, when I was a student, I stayed in Soweto, and I used to take a train from Soweto to Johannesburg. Whereas now, but to get to the train, I had to walk a long distance or sometimes take a taxi. But then now, if the transport system has been integrated, and is made available to everyone, what will then happen is that I should be able to access any mode of transport from wherever I am, irrespective of where I am and irrespective of where I'm going. So what this means for the AFCs of the future, or what it means for the ticketing of the future, is that instead of the ticketing being operator and fare media centric, it needs to start being traveler centric, because at the center of public transport is the traveler. So we need to make sure that the traveler is, we start with the traveler's needs and then build around the traveler, instead of starting with technology and starting with fare media and then expect the travelers to actually fit into that. So in terms of the AFCs, what we are seeing is that the systems are going to move from card-centric to account-based fare systems. The reason for that is that you want to be able to get customers or travelers to have a single account where they can access any mode of transport or anything related to transport. So for instance, I sat in a presentation where Sandra mentioned that you could even have a possibility whereby if you have an account, a single account, you are able to even pay for your e-tolls. Using that account, you are able to pay for your parking in public spaces and also in any other place using that centralized account-based fare system. So it's very important to note that instead of having a card-centric fare system, the fare systems are actually going to be account-based, and we need to ensure that whatever technologies that we implement support that. So what does this mean for the future of transport, of public transport? What it means, in summary, is that it's going to be multimodal, it's going to be integrated, it's going to have a single ticket, which is cash-free, and there's going to be multi-access to information on the go. It's going to be safe, reliable, and comfortable, and it's going to provide good value for money. Okay, now moving to the topic that I'm actually here to share with you, is basically the IFM project. The IFM project, what it's trying to address is some of the challenges that I mentioned here on the left. First, the lack of integration in the Gauteng province in terms of public transport, the lack of standardization. So the lack of standardization is actually going to be handled by the Transport Authority that has just been approved. So things like ensuring that the rules and the point systems between the different modes of transport, those kind of things will actually be addressed through the Transport Authority to ensure that all the public transport modes use similar systems, use similar rules, and so on. And also, there's lack of customer centricity. So the IFM project has actually been put together to ensure that all these issues can actually be addressed. So what is the IFM project? So in line with the ITMP 25, the future state of public transport in Gauteng is actually seen, or it's foreseen to be massively networked. It's foreseen to be integrated and cost-effective. And it needs to encourage public and private collaboration. It will be seamless. The public transport will be seamless across modes, meaning being able to travel across modes should be seamless. So you should be able to get the same customer experience irrespective of what mode of transport we are using. And it should actually be user-centered in terms of convenience and affordability as well. So basically, the IFM project, it actually aims to enable this state that is desired by the Gauteng province by ensuring that we provide mobility as a service. How are we going to do that? So what we have done is that we've divided this project into multiple areas. So there's multiple key areas of the project, which is the operators. We're looking at the cloud services, the TMC, AFC network, and transport IoT platform. So what does that mean? So the idea here is to say, on the operator side, we need to ensure that operators are digitized, meaning vehicles need to have a digital device that enables us to track the device, that's number one, and two, be able to implement AFC. I was listening in the radio today, someone was saying, everyone is talking about all these cashless systems and how the community must be cashless, but how come we can't swipe in a taxi? And those are some of the issues that need to be addressed by the IFM project. So basically what we are saying is that in all the public transport systems, we actually need to have a device where those devices can be utilized for the AFC and also can be utilized for tracking and scheduling and all the other areas or all the other things that make, okay. And all the other things that will make it a digital. So in addition to that, then we'll have a transport IoT platform. The transport IoT platform is going to be a device agnostic platform that connects all these operators' devices. So when you have all these operator devices connected onto a single platform and also other sources as well, such as CCTVs, traffic signals, and so on, then you'll be able to have a view of what is happening in the public transport in the Gauteng province. And then obviously all of this will be sitting in the cloud platform, in the cloud, so that we don't actually have to manage anything on premise. Another important element of the IFM project is basically a journey planner. It's very important that we have a journey planner, which fortunately we have done already, and we launched this on the 31st of March last year. Basically, a journey planner is where customers will be able to put it an origin and a destination, and then it actually tells them which modes of transport to use, where to go, how much it's going to cost them, and basically provide them with an optimal route to get to their destination. Automated fare collection, we've already spoken about it. Networks are actually going to play a very big role in this, because you need fiber networks to backhaul the traffic between the main nodes, and you also need mobile networks such as your 5Gs and others to ensure that you can actually get data from all these devices that will be sitting in the different transport modes. And the control center, or the TMC, is basically where all this information will be visualized and where all this information will be aggregated and also visualized. So in a nutshell, the IFM ecosystem is actually going to look like that diagram there on the right. Basically, we're going to have data providers, which is all the transport operators with devices that will be sharing information to a central database or a central data warehouse, where this information can actually be extracted, and applications for the transport operators themselves, for commuters and other stakeholders can actually be developed that leverage on that data that will have been stored and processed at the TMC. The high-level approach that we are going to take, or that we are taking, is to basically launch a journey planner, which we've done, to launch the EMV as the Gautrain, which we are going to do this year. It's already ready. We have a white list of people that are already using the system today. We're just busy with the productization or the go-to-market activities for this, so that we can launch it. And then we want to set up an integration backbone, and also to build a TMC. So all of that will happen in year one, and then the rest of the years we'll then start bringing. As you can see, in year one, we actually including all the BRT systems that are ready with the technology, including the Gautrain, and then also in the next years we'll then be including all the other transport operators in the province. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nico, for an exciting presentation. Clearly exciting times ahead, the integration and a rollout plan. So we've seen it now, can I say, on paper. So now we're going to follow you guys and support you guys and make it work. Thank you very much for making our lives easier and better. Ladies and gents, our last presentation for this afternoon, but not the least, is Mr. Justin Coetzee. And he's the Chief Executive Officer for Go Metro. And he's going to talk about artificial intelligence and the smart city. Thank you, Justin.
Good. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. Really appreciate it. I was very worried you'd be getting into the traffic or getting ahead of the traffic. So, yeah, now I've got to put on a show. Huh? All right, so my name's Justin Kutsia, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. A little bit about our business. So we're obviously, I had to show just what I'm missing this afternoon. Yeah, so we're based in Cape Town, and I run two businesses, one called Go Metro, the other one called Flex. A little bit about us, since I haven't been up in Joburg for a while. So we're essentially what happens when you merge technology and transport. So we're a bunch of transport planners out of UCT and Stellenbosch, and we're a bunch of software engineers, and we sit on opposite sides of the room and argue about what's the right thing to do, but we're powered by a data science team. So yeah, proudly South African technology, based in Cape Town, level 2 BEE. Okay, that's the advert done. So when we look at urban mobility, right, we come to technology conferences like this, and it's one day, the future, but let's get real, right? Slightly problematic outside as we stand. So right now, regardless of the systems we implement and integrate, it's never going to be easy, right? It's never going to just work. And the utopia that we talk about, that we wish for, that we aim for, we have to be realistic about as well. That we deal with people, assets, fuel, pollution, congestion, competition. Yeah, there are things that affect this, which means that we're always trying to implement things that work perfectly in the box in an imperfect build. And so when we talk about AI this afternoon, artificial intelligence, this is really where this comes in, that it's a very imperfect, it's a very perfect technology in an imperfect build. And so we have to be very aware of that. So the way we approach things at Go Metro is we say, well, the understanding of demand is key for us to deliver the right transport solution. So I think it kind of fits what we just saw with mobility as a service and this basket that's coming. And so if we understand demand, we can connect it to the right supply using AI, using algorithms, smart public and informal transport planning, car sharing platforms. We have a partnership with Free to Move. Or we can come up with a more adapted solution. So it might be that that paradigm that we saw, that modal share, that modal split, there are modes that don't yet exist that we will see moving around in our cities. Modes that aren't in your textbook. Modes that aren't in existence, such as airborne transport. A very good friend of mine is now Senior Business Development Manager at Volocopter, who are bringing personal transport drones to cities, starting in Germany. And they're licensed. So it's coming. Can you imagine the congestion on the above the N1? So what can we do? What can AI do to change urban mobility, right? So this is from the UITP. There's a great report by the UITP, which I highly recommend you download. And so it answers the question of, all right, so artificial intelligence, which is essentially just smart computer programming, if you want to dumb it down. It focuses on 4 areas in the public transport space or in the transport space: customer excellence, operational excellence, engineering excellence, and safety and security management. And so the CCTV that finds your face and sees that you're evading fares, that's in the safety and security basket. The Siri or Alexa integration where you say, tell me the time of the next Gautrain, that's sitting in your customer excellence side. Tell me about predictive driving, which drivers are harsh braking, so that we can tell them not to brake and therefore save on brake pads. That sits in your operational excellence side. And then when it comes to our infrastructure, we haven't even begun to implement really anything in the built environment with responsive infrastructure. And that's where we might just see the biggest savings, because that's the biggest expense in a transport system, right, is your infrastructure. So if there is efficiencies to be gained there through AI-powered solutions, then yeah, there we can go. And what's important to note here is that this isn't, when we talk about artificial intelligence, this isn't a thing that we're going to open the box, put it on the shelf, and great, our AI is working, good for us. AI is integrated or assimilated, it melts into everything. Just ask the US, right? They've got Trump because of AI melting into their social networks without them realizing, creating 2 bubbles, a red bubble and a blue bubble. You only get reinforcing messages. So AI kind of is among us. It's already infiltrating our day-to-day. It's infiltrating what we're experiencing, not just in the transport world, but generally. And so when we talk about AI, we're really talking about smarter and smarter systems, but that are really on the base. So it's really good that we had Tommy's presentation to show the extent of the system requirements and the network requirements and the quality, and we'll come back to this in a second, but the quality of information, data, systems, repositories, integrations, that long list of architectural requirements before you can even start to play with AI. And it's like garbage in, garbage out, right? No data, no information. No data, no insights. Then it's very artificial intelligence. Okay, no one got that one. Okay. So this is what's happening around the world when it comes to AI. So some are using it to predict train delays. SVB is using it to look at railway dispatching, bus operations, intelligent bus public trials, mass transit data analytics systems. And what's interesting to note about this, these are all organized systems that are being optimized. It's because there's a lot of rules already. There's a lot of data. There's a lot of systems. So the place to start with AI in any system is where? In your organized systems, in your organized arrangements. Interestingly enough, you see a very strong Chinese and a very strong kind of Swiss and German trend coming here. So the leaders in AI are not necessarily sitting in California or elsewhere. When it comes to engineering excellence and the infrastructure side, very few examples. It's a very emerging field. But and then in safety and security, I think that's also going to be a huge growth market as cameras become smarter, as CCTV becomes smarter, as 5G hits the market. You're going to be able to run your control center not just with, you could say, dumb cameras, but with really smart cameras that find the guy that's moving really suspiciously, and then the camera locks on him, and the next camera, and the next camera, and you have a continual loop because a guy moved funny. That's currently being trialed in TfL. You know, he suspiciously was standing by a side with a bag that he then left. Cameras can detect these things without a human being saying, follow that guy. The camera can see that this guy just did something out of character and follows him. So following people within our networks through CCTV is a reality today. And then what we often think is AI is just this little customer excellence side. And there's a danger that, well, this chatbot and travel bots, and we think it's just this cute little toy. And so let's just dig in and see what we can do. So AI can look at real-time operations management, customer analytics, predictive maintenance, and network planning and route design. So it's integrated, or it should be, or it will be, integrated into the operations of a public transport network at every single level of the day-to-day operations. It may not be visible, it may be invisible, but it will be there. But there are challenges to this, right? So it's the data quality. So garbage in, garbage out. I think we have a real challenge in this country with regards to data quality and data existence beyond PDFs in IPTN reports or ITPs. I think our ITP standard needs to get real. We need real data as a requirement in the data that we're spending lots of public money on collecting. Build capacity and knowledge in AI. Know thy enemy. So if a robot's going to be running the show, understand it, so engage with it. We're going to see data privacy issues fall away. Are you invading someone's privacy if a machine is watching you? Like, are you still private? If a machine's watching you, and only if you behave funny does it then call a human. So there's ethical questions here which we haven't even begun to grapple with, right? And what is funny? What is the definition of moving funny? Meet the requirements of data volumes, right? So we are talking about petabytes and words that I can't even pronounce with byte at the end, which means that they're very big collections of data. And so the way we store data, the way we transmit data, our networks, so government, spectrum, 5G, we need to unlock that spectrum. And top management must see this as more than just a toy, or more than just what the IT guys are getting up to. All right, so in preparation for this course, I think, well, I'm a transport planner, right? So I need simpler models. I need 4-step models to think about anything. I've got a 4-step model on how to make coffee. That's just how transport planners work. We have 4-step models. So here's a 4-step model for how we can think about AI in mobility. So we saw a lot of data sources in presentations today. And so there's a phase where you need to be measuring, right? And you need to measure the quality of your measurements. And so getting really good quality data is the start from multiple sources. Then you can choose your modeling technique. So we've got knowledge-based systems, computational intelligence, agent-based modeling, operational rationalization. These are all existing technologies and applications that have been developed over the last decade or so in this field. So you can choose your weapon or your tool when it comes to what you want to model. But then you need really good management systems, because an algorithm that makes a prediction, which is just a guess, an algorithm that makes a prediction isn't worth anything if it can't act on that prediction. So your management systems, which I think the traditional ITS field is all about management systems. Everything is an MS. You get your AMS and your CMS and your BMS and your all sorts of MSs. So your management systems, we're really strong at management systems as a field, and that's where AI is going to be actioned. And then you can move into more real-time responsive sides. So this is the Measure, Model, Manage, Move 4-step model by Justin Coetzee when it comes to AI and mobility. So it just helps me kind of think about what is the benefit and where is the application. And so AI obviously has inputs, it has work to do, it has systems to inform, and then hopefully there are benefits. Real-time responsiveness, actionability, incident reporting, and all the good stuff comes out on the other end. But yeah, so this is just a range of sources of data on the measure side. But just some caution. So we get into this space, and then we're like, well, there was a comment earlier, right? We'll build an app, and like with respect to Tommy, right? We can build it, but will they download it? We can give it, but will they use it? And so crowdsourcing or trying to get user information is really, really, really tough. And so when we're looking at existing data sets, and we want complete data sets to learn, so we want the system to now learn and perfect its algorithm, the quality of that data set, crowdsourcing has problems with distribution, density, dynamics, and so if we're crowdsourcing the primary data set, we might just end up with a skewed, biased data set. Because if you think about it, if we're crowdsourcing, we're basically asking people with smartphones to tell us what they want. We're not asking people with like cheaper phones. We're not asking people with no phones. We're not asking children. We're not asking the elderly. So we're just reinforcing, like, what do you want, millennials? Let's build it. And so we really need to be aware of the distribution, the societal needs that technology may miss. Every data source, data set, collection method, approach, it has limitations. Understanding them means you can avoid them. Understanding each one's limitations means that you can counteract or get in another data source, an alternative data source, a calibrating data source, a confirmation data source. So just because it's a big bunch of data doesn't mean it's right. And then just because it looks pretty on a map and it's a great visualization, great like sales tool, don't assume that it has value or merit. Interrogate the business value. Interrogate, what does this mean? Or what can I do with this? What is the actionable benefit? Otherwise, it's just a pretty thing. Models, so these are different ways that you can model. So we've got user interface models, knowledge-based models, inference engines, explanation generators, neural networks and fuzzy logic and genetic algorithm. That's where it kind of gets really boring. And then you've got agent-based modeling, which we've been using for ages with MATSIM and the alternative open source software. So you can do a lot of modeling on free tools. You don't need like an AI firm or a data scientist, whatever. There's a lot of stuff that you could do on a spreadsheet that is the beginning of testing AI models. But some cautions. So it could be misunderstood as a toy when it's all about like, Siri, what time is it? Or Siri, what time is my train? Or Siri, like that is just one of the applications. For a lot of systems to work, you need a lot of data. And if you underinvest in your data, if you underscope your data and you don't understand the data, validity, requirements, etc., your project will fail. Like your AI initiatives will just feed you wrong information. And the algorithms should have something to do next. So what is the management system that I relate to? What is the handover? And so there's a handshake that your algorithm needs to make to some sort of management system. Okay, just some practical points. So what are the opportunities? And I thought I'd end today with a bit of a case study. But there are opportunities in our transport network at a network level. And as a transport planner, I'll talk about networks and transport plans. So there's opportunities to look at feeder services, network coverage, high-demand shuttles, and driver performances using AI. And you'll notice when you're trying to implement artificial intelligence, you always just about start with a question. So what if we did this? And so you'll find the questions are helpful because they inform your curiosity. You're not trying to solve a particular paradigm or reach a particular conclusion. You're trying to solve a particular problem. And you've got all these different tools to use to come up with an answer as long as it's actionable. And so these are some of the questions that we're playing with right now, we're toying with, and we're trying to see what some of these solutions could be. So here's a case study on a feeder service in Cape Town. So Cape Town's represented today, second Mecca. So how do we use AI in urban mobility in South Africa? So we've seen a lot of in the future and one day and in the next 5 years, but I'd like to show you something that we've just completed. So this is a real application of AI and these 4 steps that I've just shown that we've really just successfully completed in Cape Town. So meet the Southern Terminal Mitchells Plain in Cape Town. It integrates to Golden Arrow, MyCity, and Metrorail when Metrorail runs. It is a 78 vehicle fleet in this one taxi association. You can see they are parked in a holding area up north, and they use this terminus to operate. They run feeder services for about a population of about 30,000 people in the Tafelsig area in Cape Town. Very, very good operation. They've made reforms to their business. They really run a good quality minibus taxi operation. And so the basis was there for us to try and assist them with their operations. So here was the licensed routes and an onboard survey that we did. They operate 4 routes from Mitchells Plain Station down into Tafelsig. And a route is a different color, so each color is a different license. Okay, so point number 1, our licensing scheme is a bit problematic. One association has these 4 licenses, and it basically is pretty much the same operation or operational zone that's developed. Okay, so first finding. Second finding, you can kind of see where demand aggregates. So the thing we said earlier about where is the demand. And you're not looking at me suspiciously. What did I tell you about when someone shows you a pretty map? Right? You should all be going, what's the benefit? Why are you showing us this? I'll get to that. But you can see that the demand that aggregates and where the demand manifests is in certain key locations. And very, very often, there are places where there's no passengers. No passengers, no revenue, you're wasting fuel. And so the operation from this initial data that we were able to use just basic stochastics to identify when is the vehicle underutilized, or when is a vehicle underutilized, what are the conditions? And we start investigating these questions. We then drilled down a little bit further. So we spent a lot of time understanding or modeling the operation. And here you can see there is some competition for some of their routes. So the red and the orange are other operations that are infringing in their area. So if they were to change the operations, there's a real threat of piracy, of competition on some of the routes that they operate. So that was quite important to understand. It was also very important to understand when every one of those dots is not just a human trying to get somewhere. Well, it is. It's a human trying to get somewhere. But it's a human trying to get somewhere. So every one of those dots needed a vector to say, where is it that you want to go? Is it to the station? Is it to the clinic? Is it to the what? To the who? To the where? And so every one of those dots is an agent that's trying to make his way around Mitchells Plain, Tafelsig area, using the minibus taxi network. Commonality, rules, and some of the algorithms meant that we could essentially implement a fixed route service with a schedule, a timetable, and we could implement that knowing where the majority of the demand manifests. Why did we do this? It's because of what I said earlier. For you to implement AI, you kind of need to introduce order. You need to have rules, you need to have standards for you to start seeing the efficiencies. And so we were able to kind of reverse out of the data into an operating model that ran on particular routes, these 5 main routes with 2 deviations at certain times of the day, and a schedule. And so what we were able to do was move the informal chasing customer into a coordinated body. Are you interested in the results? So, well, not yet. Because we needed one more thing, right? The other lesson was AI, algorithms, modeling. If it can't go into a management system that is actionable and measurable, what good is it? So we were able to implement a management system, an MS, which allowed them to see, is a vehicle sticking to route and sticking to schedule? Because that's basically what a bus must do, right? And so we were able to identify when a driver is late at a particular timing point, or when he was off route, chasing passengers, and thus change the operation and give intelligence to the operator to change the operation. This is important to note. We relaxed a lot of the rules. So there's no stops. Those are only timing points. The taxi can still stop at the robot. It can still block the traffic. So we haven't solved that problem yet. But the point was that order was started to be introduced. So who would like to know what happened? January 10, we started operating the system with the operator, and the results are as follows. We were able to take 50% of the vehicles off the road. So they went from 78 vehicles to 36 vehicles with 6 spare in the peak to respond to the peak. So half the fleet gone. We were able to then keep every job, no job loss, because drivers went from 14-hour days to 9-hour days, 7-hour days, and 2-shift system. So for 36 vehicles, I need 79 drivers to operate them from 5 in the morning to 8 in the evening on 2 shifts. So labor condition improved, job loss 0, earnings the same. Fuel saving, 50% less fuel. So you can imagine the effect on the operations. Ridership remained the same. Revenue collected remained the same. So the application of algorithms, which is just what artificial intelligence is, into a management system, into something that can be actioned and then go live, has resulted in this operation achieving a break-even, even when you account for recapitalization and for maintenance and management fees. And so we were quite pleased with these results. So just to recap, so we measured, right? We came up with a model that we thought was a good idea. We implemented it with a management system that had actionable insights, and the result was a system that's now sustainable. And so it's a case study, and I think quite an important, a seminal case study, because it really points to the future, where right now in the next 5 years, while we wait for all of the future systems to come, we can help today's systems work better. Work better for the operator, work better for the city, and work better for the rider. And then how we did this was through these 4 products, which is our big data warehouse and our GoMetro Pro application, our fleet management tool, which was used for the modeling and for the adherence, and we'll be introducing a rider app and a driver app in the next 6 months. So we were able to measure, model, manage, move with an actionable technology set. So what next? So according to the UITP, we're going to see mobility as a service really come to the fore. We're going to see customer experiences change. We're going to see smart city initiatives take off and have real impact, real world impact. On-demand services are going to become a reality and move away from that ownership model. Autonomous shuttles, electric shuttles, the future of mobility can be powered by these fleet algorithms that you see. Safety and security can really become an actionable solution. And the preventative maintenance applications will be enormous. And I'll leave you with this slide, which is the world is moving. When you look at technology and its impact into transportation, what you'll find what's interesting is each one of these service providers, even those that build the vehicles, the physical vehicles, will be using AI and will be dripping and pouring AI juice all over their technology over the next few years. And so it's really important as professionals we are equipped to deal with this. This isn't magic. The challenge and the danger is that we view it as magic because we don't engage with it, we don't understand it, and we can't relate to it. If we view it as magic, we can't criticize it. If we view it as magic, we can't regulate it. So it's very, very important for us as professionals in a society responsible for the efficient and effective movement of millions and millions of people to engage with this reality so that we really don't get another Trump. Thank you. Next question.
Thank you so much, Justin. Ladies and gents, don't you think this is exciting? Case study always calls a spade a spade. Ladies and gents, we're going to do the panel discussion now, so we're going to set up quickly here for the panel. It will just be 2 minutes. And can we have all our panelists to the front, please? And then I will explain to you the rules of the game. Unfortunately, Victor Radebe can't be here, but there he is. So you. Great. Thank you, Victor. Right, so our panelists can take their seats at the front. Thank you. Ladies and gents, what we will do is rules of the game. You can ask a question and you can direct your question to a certain member of the panel or to the panel as a whole. We usually take 2 or 3 questions and then we'll give the panel opportunity to respond. Tommy is going to chair the panel for us in terms of making sure we answer all the questions. Please keep it short and try and keep it to 1 question at a time because we need to give as many as possible people opportunity to talk. So I'll come to you with the microphone and the camera, and then you can ask your question when we're ready, and we'll take 2 or 3 questions, and then we'll give the panel opportunity to respond. Right, can I see first question? Yeah?
Morning, Hitem Palmer from the National Electric Mobility Program. Thanks to the event organizers and also the presenters for this morning. I think in the whole age of digitization, and this is targeted to any of the speakers that might be able to address this question, amongst the digital age and changing to smart cities, smart transport and everything else, it's all fine, fair and well, but I haven't seen anybody addressing the topic of cybersecurity. Across the experts on the table from mobility side and transport and city side, can we have some insights on how is this being addressed? Because it's all fair and well having access to data, but what if that is compromised and how are we going to address it? Thank you.
I've got a question there to Ria, going there.
Thanks, Harry. My name's Andrew Barker. I'm a development consultant and town planner. And I feel a little bit strange sitting in a transport forum. But I believe there's a dimension missing, and that is the spatial dimension. We've heard some fantastic presentations. It's very exciting. There's some tremendous opportunities. But really, apart from Mike earlier on mentioning the town planning and spatial side, and perhaps Justin at the end, the actual spatial side of our smart cities has to be addressed. Someone spoke about a radical spatial, radical transport change. We need to think about how do we move jobs to where people are. We're talking a lot about moving people to jobs, to places, but why aren't we moving places to people? And how does the smart technology help us understand it? And I think, Justin, towards the end, you talked about the movement of people, but what are the implications from a spatial planning point of view as to your findings? And I think that's an aspect of modeling which we need to look at. We need to look at efficient cities. We're left with a legacy, and we're not addressing that legacy. We talk about the spatial legacy, but what are we doing about it? We're actually enforcing it. We're spreading our cities out further. We're not using smart technology to actually bring people into town, but also take work to where people are. And I think that's a dimension of the transportation systems and the need to integrate the spatial and the planning with the movement of people and goods. So.
I think let's give an opportunity to respond.
Afternoon, everybody. I think basically maybe in my presentation or in the presentation it was more or less like assumed, because it is really an integral part, especially when it comes to movement of information and data. So as and when we bringing in any ICT infrastructure, be it basically connectivity or even access, there are different mechanisms that will be put into place to ensure that there is cyber security, especially when you're looking at actually even cross-sharing of information, because as a cloud is basically a platform area where it's a shared services. So it is basically one of the things that it is addressed at almost every aspect, whether it's a network level or the software level.
Thank you. I'd like to just touch on Andrew's question about the spatial dimension. And to give you a bit of a picture on that, is that in Tshwane's case, we sit with the area north of the Magaliesberg called the zone of choice. We only have 23% of the permanent work opportunities north of the Magalies, and we sit with 53% of our citizens staying north of the Magalies, which means that a lot of people on a daily basis needs to cross the Magalies. There are only limited points to do that. So it's total disaster, congestion and so on. So the focus really is to get industry, mixed land use, and all these things going north of the Magalies like never before. And that's not something that the council on its own can do. We need to take hands and do it, and do it at a rate that we've never seen before. And we need mobility systems, public transport systems to support that. You know, if you think of Zambezi Road, Sefaka Mogatu, it's a total disaster, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there are no simple solutions, but we've got to take hands to make this work really. Thank you.
Anybody else? Cybersecurity?
I can talk briefly because it relates to issues. I'm glad you raised it, Hiten. If we probably spend it to talk about privacy, the issue of privacy is becoming a problem. Okay. And I know yesterday I heard Amazon is trialing facial recognition, and a company called CETA that is working in airports, they say basically your face will be your boarding pass into the future. But there are serious issues around that. I think this sits in the realm of ethics when it comes to the data use. Because unfortunately, the horse has bolted as far as privacy. And we as users are complicit in that, in the fact that we're so lax. We share data so easily with just about everybody, and that data is being abused. But we probably need to look, I don't know whether it's probably one of the departments that deals with issues of privacy, is that we need to deal with the issue of ethics and also hold telcos and every other company to account. But it can't just be left just to them. We saw what happened with Facebook and Analytica, Cambridge Analytica. So it's something that's going to continue, especially within, as more and more we're going to be sharing our data. That is happening. I mean, Discovery Insure uses my data, okay? But because I'm getting something out of it, I don't mind. As much as Google and everybody else, I don't mind them getting something out of it. So privacy is a price, okay? If you're not paying, you've heard they say, if you're not paying for it, you're the business, okay? So what it means basically is that you either pay for privacy or you're the business. And unfortunately, we can't turn back the clock and go back to the days of Nokia 5110 when we don't have to be tracked on just about everything. I mean, it's unfortunate. We had that a point of no return as far as data security is concerned.
Chuck, do you want to say something?
All right, so in my presentation I mentioned that we're going to be having an IoT, a platform, a device-agnostic IoT platform, which means that you know, different operators and different manufacturers will be coming with their own devices. So it's a basically BYOD kind of situation, which opens us up to a lot of security risks. So the idea there is that when we implement that through the Transport Authority and other factors, we should be able to put together a minimum requirements in terms of the standards and the security requirements in terms of the devices that will be incorporated onto the platform. So that's really the idea. And then obviously in terms of, if you look at the IoT stack, you have the device layer, you've got the network layer, then you have the cloud, and so on. So security has to be implemented at all those areas, at all those levels, in order for you to get end-to-end security.
Cool. Just to add on to what Nico said, is from our perspective in terms of that platform, we're handling cash payments and clearing, so clearly it's regulated and there's proper standards in place, so you need proper accreditation throughout the system, through the various authorities, and through developing the various platforms and the interactions, you need to clear those hurdles before you can actually implement. So from that perspective, good corporate governance in terms of the cybersecurity is foremost in putting all of these integrated solutions together. We don't get those right, there's proper standards we need to adhere to, and it's regulated. And get the certification, we should be good.
Right, thank you very much. Let's take
Last question. There we go. There we go. Kindly identify yourself.
Thank you. I'm Good Company from the company Give Me Access, which is connected to people with special needs. So, hearing about the transportation, that it seems like in the future there's a lot more people coming in and will be accommodated on the roads. It seems like we're only looking at getting people with transport easier and faster, but I haven't heard anything about how to accommodate people with special needs getting to their workplace and to places where they need to go, to also be people of what you call it, active in the community.
You want to go first?
Yeah. I'm Christian Alberts, also from Gimme Access. My question is similar. It is, how is the NMT component going to be integrated with the smart city concept, and has adequate provision been made for universal access, both for the technology and the non-motorized transport component? That's it.
Yeah, so with regards to the question on universal access or improving access, project that I showed earlier, it's actually a demand responsive transit solution. And we think, based on the operations we're running, that we can produce really reliable paratransit or demand responsive transit solutions. So in the US, every state is mandated to provide a dial-a-ride type service and a service that identifies and implements a shuttle that's equipped with wheelchair access to the person's door, and then they are able to do a trip. So the software is quite expensive, the processes are quite clunky, and the system's very expensive. So in a South African context, you really don't have the budgets to provide that level of service and operate. And the one service that does operate in Cape Town is a paper-based service that you need to book your travel 3 days in advance and hope that nothing goes wrong. And if you cancel, you're probably going to have to wait another week before you do that. So I wouldn't call that necessarily access, even though the city is doing a very admirable job in trying to create a level of service. Once we are able to unlock this type of supply, once we're able to implement these types of fleet algorithms, your provision of service can be faster, your booking process can be simpler, you can your management systems can be much more tighter, and therefore that buck that we're spending can go much more further. So I think that the application, the fleet management's application that I showed earlier, it has a really important place to play in improving access for disabilities. And there's a case where technology can really help. But you need, it's not just technology, it's funding, it's provision of planning, it's a system of management, of governance, it's a whole bunch of factors that must work. And honestly, the technology is maybe the easiest part. The governance, institutional, social is the harder part in transport. With regards to NMT on the technology side, we've been running trials of an application that evaluates payment level experiences. So it's one thing to say, yes, we have an NMT strategy and an NMT plan. Great, that's probably on a shelf somewhere, and we'll update it in 3 years' time. But the application that we've been trialing and we're hoping to start putting into this test environment allows any pedestrian to say, here is a step that's too high, for instance, or here is a place that doesn't work, and evaluate the NMT experience. So unfortunately, with the technology maturity and what you've seen here today, we're at the data collection side. Everyone's kind of just getting data. However, we have to start seeing real world applications with regards to actionable systems that integrate into management systems.
Just 2 comments. From the Gauteng side, we actually have a running program right now, or a running project actually, to comply to universal access requirements. And in terms of NMT, we're also looking at how can we increase the use or to make our train stations more NMT friendly, to ensure that people that use non-motorized transport will be able to store their bicycles or any other transport systems that they're utilizing at the station. So lastly, in terms of the journey planner that I mentioned earlier, which will be a provincial journey planner that allows you to insert your origin and destination, what will then happen there is that you will be able to mention if you have any special needs on the application itself, so that the transport system that you use end to end is actually aware of the type of needs that you have, so that when you get to the other side of the station, for instance, let's say you're using a taxi from your home to the station, when you get to Pretoria, for instance, then you need to utilize a bus. Then already the transport systems that will be transporting you are aware of your needs before you even arrive. So that's the idea of the HNE plan.
Maybe just another point, the municipalities is taking and making a lot of effort to get universal access implemented, especially when it comes to BRT systems. Unfortunately, with all public transport buses that's there, they don't have the facilities to provide access. But in any BRT station that is built, there are certain minimum requirements to make provision for that. And even when you look at the Transport Management Centre, I was involved in one of the municipalities. To get our grant, we had to comply to universal access just for people that are attending and working in the Transport Management Centre. And there's a lot of effort done. And even moving to taxis now, where a certain amount of taxis get modified to make provision for wheelchairs, for instance. So from a technology side, there is also facilities at stations where for hard-hearing people and people that is blind. But there's a lot of effort put in from municipal and from national level to make sure that we comply to universal access. Okay, any questions? Any more? Any comments?
I've got one question there.
Hi, Zintla from CISPA Africa IT Group. I wanted to know, how are we as an ecosystem going to be able to drive the adoption of these technologies? My worry is we'll come up with all these great innovations and they'll end up as white elephants. So how do we drive that adoption?
Right, another question? Nobody? All right, let's give the panel opportunity to respond.
I think when I did the presentation, I did highlight that the fifth thing that we need in adoption of most of these things is the leadership. And I think that's one of the things that will be the key driver in mainly doing that. And looking at most of these, maybe let me say, put it in another way, concepts. It will be more or less to say it's never something that will be built overnight. It will have to be a phased approach, where while we're doing this, there are so many changes that they'll be subjected to. So in terms of that, there will be that element that we need to have to integrate to say how do we adapt to the changes, especially with the fast changes which are actually happening within the ICT domain as well.
I'm going to answer it using an example. So one of the reasons that we haven't launched the EMV system yet is because of a problem called card clash. So what people normally do when they get to the Gautrain station is they take out their wallets and they tap with their wallets. So the problem comes in where you have your bank card and the Gautrain card in the same wallet. Which one does the system use? So because of that, you then there's an education element that comes with this. So education is one of the ways in which we need to resolve this issue of adoption of new technology. So that's just one element. There's many others.
And I think earlier I made the point that technology for technology's sake doesn't deserve an audience. And it doesn't deserve to exist. And it should fail and be a white elephant so that we can learn from it. Technology has to deliver a benefit. It has to produce a saving, an efficiency, an improvement, a new experience. There's a reason why people are moving to these technologies. It's because in their minds they're making a transactional decision. They're making a cost-benefit analysis to shift. So if a technology is not being adopted, well, maybe it shouldn't deserve to be adopted. And certainly the benefits to society have to be very real for it to be taken. And if the benefits are real,
it will be consumed, it will go forward.
I think the most important point, and some people don't like when I say it, is there's three main role players in this whole process. Firstly is the user. There should be a user willingness to adopt and to change. The second one, when you talk about government, is administrative willingness to make this process working. And then the last, we just went through elections, is the political will. If there is no synchronization and willing between the three stakeholders, then we shouldn't roll out any technology and improvement.
Right, before we give the panelists, each one of them, an opportunity for closing comments, let's take the last question from the audience.
Hello, myself from the CSR. Just have a question regarding all the different systems that we discussed today. And I remember Mr. Victor Khadego, just that he's not here now, he did mention that the lower earning population spend around 40% of their money on transport. And when you look in Pretoria and Soweto, those kind of areas, most of them are using the metro rail system. But I've heard little reference or any information regarding that system. Is it being overlooked, or is it something totally different to this forum, or is it a question for another day? Because I'm a big, what can I say, I love rail, for especially bulk cargo as well, moving some of the cargo off the roads onto the rail system to just free up some of the congestion on the road. But I'm just wondering how the commuters and these systems, how are they going to get integrated into all of this? It's just what I want to know. And also the metro rail system, how it affects the question that the other gentleman also asked in terms of the disabilities. Basically.
Thank you. Let's take another question. Last one. Everybody happy? Right, the panel can respond to that last question.
Yeah, I can respond to it, and also my final word. PRASA is busy with a transformation process as well, and there are certain things that they're doing, and they're part of the bigger project, and I know from a Gautrain side, they're part of that process as well to make sure that there's integration. And no, they're not left out for a reason, but I think there's a lot of work that they need to do from their side as well to get to the same level as we're having with the BRT systems and public transport systems, Gautrain. And that is a process that they need to follow. And then lastly from my side is, I think this is one of the few opportunities we have to share information, and I think it's not the last one. And thank you, Harry, for organizing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tommy.
My last remark is basically to first and foremost thank the audience for having to bear the whole day listening to presentations. And in most cases, it's not a matter of presentations, it's basically what we learn amongst each other. I think this creates a platform for dialogue for us to move forward with the smart cities, with our contributions that we can offer from individual level to corporate levels to organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Mike.
Thank you, Chair. Just a final comment around perhaps BRT systems, and that we build very expensive BRT systems with very expensive stations, and then we don't make sure that people get there and it's accessible to everybody. There are no proper feeder system solutions where you get dropped off. You can't leave your bicycles there, you can't walk in general in a safe way there and back. So there's lots to be done, and then we're wondering why the seats are empty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Nico.
All right, so I just want to say that as a representative of the Department of Roads and Transport, as an employee of the GMA, the department is not sleeping. We are aware of the changes that are taking place in our environment and the possibilities that are being brought about by the fourth industrial revolution. And we are busy trying to ensure that we can leverage these advancements in technology and also the evolution of the people's demands to ensure that we can meet their requirements and be able to provide an integrated public transport system in the province.
Thank you, Nico. Justin.
So just a response to the Metrorail question. There's a little app called Go Metro, which is where this started in 2012. It's still, you can go onto it, gometroapp.com, and there are real-time announcements, train schedules, and it's built in a way that it uses the least amount of data, and it allows you to plan your journey when it comes to the rail network. It's active in Gauteng, in KZN, Eastern Cape, and Western Cape, so it's national. And what's been very interesting there is we've been using that information, people's logging in and taking a look at where their trains are going, to detect early detection of delays. So we've been able to almost tell PRASA when trains aren't arriving because they haven't arrived before the real-time tracking system can update and confirm using people's searches and people's movements. So certainly rail is backbone of our transport planning system, and it has to go through its transformation and its then necessary restructurings and upgrades. But yeah, the beneficiaries, they were actually one of the first beneficiaries of a real-time journey planning app in the country, as Metrorail users. The beneficiaries of the taxi industry, or the users of that taxi association's trips, are all transferring to bus or rail. So by them having a more efficient, more on-time, more regular schedule, we've increased or included the feeder services. And I certainly think that the most exciting area of technology in South Africa is how do we integrate taxi to rail, taxi to rapid rail, taxi to BRT station. It's the most expensive service that a bulk operator must run. It's feeder network. That's why it doesn't really work. The honest truth is it's expensive to do it properly. It's not economical. And so the feeder network and the rationalization of the feeder network, to me, is the golden egg that we have in South Africa to try and make real improvements in our transport system immediately across everything.
Thanks. Just as a concluding remark from myself, I think in terms of the presentations, we're all aligned in terms of our thinking and strategy and where we all want to end up. We're all chasing the same dream with the same outcomes. And I think the challenge for us, specifically around this table, is for all of us to really get together and implement what we need to do in a collective, in a collaborative way, because I can see some challenges where we're trying to implement the same thing but in a silo mentality. One of the speakers did address the silo mentality, and if we can bridge that, then I think we'd be well on our way to actually providing a proper solution that will benefit the ultimate user. So it's all down to that willingness and holding hands and putting in the right direction from my perspective. So yeah, the proof is in the pudding, because it's not technology that's going to keep us back, it's the wills and the egos of people, what they want to drive, that will stand in the way of implementing successful solutions in transport. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that before I sound like a pastor.
Thank you so much, George. Ladies and gents, let's give the panel a hand. Please stay where you are. Producer, we're going to have the camera on me. We're now going to say goodbye to our online users. Thank you very much for following us today. I really appreciate it. The next Transport Forum will be on the 6th of June, hosted by University of Johannesburg. It's all about enhancing Southern African freight, and a lot of technology going to be seen there. Very interesting event, so we look forward to seeing you there again. Thank you very much.